Chapter 557. In the evening, the Sky Crane Gang's mountain had become a dead mountain. The setting sun was like blood, but it wasn't blood. Instead, it was a river of blood flowing slowly. The entire Sky Crane Gang's sect was filled with the thick smell of blood. Leng Shiqi wiped off the blood on his saber and looked at the people who were plundering the Sky Crane Gang's resources. He sighed in his heart. A first-rate sect. Not long ago, this was an unshakable giant to Leng Shiqi. But today, he had actually destroyed a first-rate sect. In fact, it wasn't just him. Zhan Rui, Chao Peng, and Lei Haoge were all like this. First-rate sects were second only to the top sects in the world. They were definitely overlords. For example, the Sky Crane Gang was stronger than the Discipline Commission or the Dark Lightning Guards. If it was a normal situation, even if both sides worked together, they would still lose a mouthful of teeth. But who told their gang leader and grand elder to die early in the 100 sects martial meeting? Without these two peak forces, the Sky Crane Gang's strength would be reduced by more than half. In addition to the slaughtering King's Manor and Leng Shiqi's forces, destroying the half-crippled Sky Crane Gang was naturally not a problem. However, the destruction of a first-rate sect had not happened in Shantai County for over 100 years. When this news spread out, let alone Shantai County, even the entire Thunderblaze dynasty would be shaken. This was naturally a good thing for the Thunderblaze dynasty. Because there were many people hiding in the dark who were preparing to do something when His Majesty's lifespan was nearing its end. Today's battle could be considered a powerful deterrent. Those earth rats would not dare to show their faces for a short period of time. Lei Haoge also felt a little elated. He had been an idle prince for several years, but now, he had annihilated the Thunder Alliance and then the Sky Crane Gang. Even though he wasn't the mastermind during this process, he was still a prince. So, whether it was the Dark Lightning Guards or the Discipline Commission, they would put him at the top of the list. He could imagine how shocked his imperial brothers would be when this news reached the imperial capital. Lei Haoge grinned and said to Leng Shiqi, "This king really admires Lord Lu and regrets that we didn't meet earlier. Tonight, we will drink until we are drunk." The others were well aware that Lei Haoge was trying his best to rope in Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi naturally noticed this as well, but he didn't want to get too involved with these princes. He cupped his fists and said, "Your Highness, I still have to rush back to the imperial capital to report on my mission. Let's drink this wine another time." Lei Haoge's eyes twitched. Back at the slaughtering King's Manor, Leng Shiqi's attitude had been completely different. Leng Shiqi had even referred to himself as a subject. Next time. As long as Leng Shiqi did not come to Shantai County, they would probably never have the chance to meet again. But Lei Haoge had made some progress. Not only did he not show any anger, he smiled even more brightly. He found a way out of this embarrassing situation and invited the others. Of course, they happily agreed. Leng Shiqi was about to leave with Feng Shamo and the others when a voice appeared in his mind. "Brother Lu, please wait." It was Zhuge Puha who transmitted the message. He said in a strange tone, "This one has some things to say to Brother Lu alone. Please step aside for a moment." Leng Shiqi's footsteps did not stop. He only nodded his head slightly. That night, Leng Shiqi and the others came to a small city to rest. He himself took advantage of the night to sneak out of the city. In a forest outside the city, someone had been waiting for him. When Zhuge Puha saw Leng Shiqi appear, he waved his hand and scattered starlight in all directions. The starlight immediately dimmed, and the two figures could no longer be seen from the outside. No sound or presence could be heard from inside. "What's with all the commotion? If you have something to say, just say it," Leng Shiqi said straightforwardly. Zhuge Puha said with a serious expression, "Brother Lu, can you take off your clothes?" Leng Shiqi immediately showed an expression of disbelief. Could it be that Zhuge Puha had some special fetish? In the middle of the night, in a dark forest, he even set up a formation. Leng Shiqi felt a chill run down his spine, but he immediately threw away these messy thoughts. There was indeed something fishy about his body. It was the star atlas that suddenly appeared on his body after he opened his 360 spiritual cavities. Now he also remembered that when he used demonic ephemeral bloom to deal with Gao Han's divine light, he had indeed mysteriously absorbed Zhuge Puha's star atlas. At that time, Lin Shiqi was completely focused, so he didn't pay much attention to it. Later, he also thought that Zhuge Puha had helped him, but now it seemed that something unexpected had happened. Looking at Lin Shiqi's disdainful expression, Zhuge Puha also realized his slip of the tongue. His expression stiffened, and he said awkwardly, "Brother Lu, please don't misunderstand. I just want to confirm something. Brother Zhuge, you'd better make it clear. Otherwise, I wouldn't have done such a strange thing." Lin Shiqi shook his head. Others didn't know, but he certainly knew that this star atlas was probably related to the legendary Stellar Clan. That was the Stellar Clan that had enslaved the human clan for countless years. Even after hundreds of thousands of years, the resentment buried in their souls hadn't weakened much. Once others knew that he was related to the Stellar Clan, he would definitely become the public enemy. Not to mention a meteoric rise, it would be good enough if he could keep his life. Therefore, it was impossible for him to show his star atlas to outsiders. Zhuge Puha looked troubled and said, "Brother Lu, actually, when you were fighting against Gao Han's divine light, I saw the star atlas, and I'm sure that it wasn't a spiritual technique. So, Brother Lu, don't deceive yourself. Also, I have absolutely no enmity towards Brother Lu. Please rest assured." However, the more he said this, the more suspicious Lin Shiqi became. After all, he had cheated Zhuge Puha of many precious cultivation resources. No matter how generous Zhuge Puha was, it was impossible for him to not hold any grudges. He said, "I have urgent matters to attend to. I'll take my leave first." Seeing that Lin Shiqi still didn't believe him, Zhuge Puha sighed deeply. He formed a seal with his hands, and stars appeared around his body. Strangely, Lin Shiqi's body also began to glow with faint starlight, reflecting Zhuge Puha's radiance from afar. "Brother Lu, to be honest, my Zhuge family has a great relationship with you. This is the strongest evidence. Now, Brother Lu, are you willing to listen to me in detail?" Lin Shiqi, who was about to turn around, paused. Now it seemed that there was indeed some relationship between him and Zhuge Puha, so he nodded silently. Zhuge Puha took a deep breath, and there was a hint of solemnity on his face. He said word by word, "The Zhuge family is the guardian family of the Stellar Clan." Chapter 558. Hearing the words, "guardian family," Lin Shiqi looked at Zhuge Puha suspiciously. The human tribe and the star tribe had been enemies for generations. No one would believe that Zhuge Puha or the Zhuge family was the so-called guardian family. Zhuge Puha knew that Lin Shiqi would not believe him. He used his spiritual power and tore off his shirt, revealing his muscular and beautiful upper body. Lin Shiqi's eyes narrowed. There was a star map on Zhuge Puha's body. However, he only had one star map. Compared to Lin Shiqi's countless star maps, it was too simple. "Brother Lu, you have seen it. Strictly speaking, I am also a member of the star tribe. Unfortunately, my star tribe bloodline is so thin that it is almost non-existent. My family used a secret method to stimulate my bloodline, so I can only be considered half a member of the star tribe. Brother Lu, you have the pure bloodline of the star tribe. You are the person that the Zhuge family has been waiting for generations." The more Zhuge Puha spoke, the more excited he became. Lin Shiqi had never thought that there were descendants of the star tribe in this world. They had not been discovered for so long. At this point, Lin Shiqi was almost convinced. However, he still asked, "As far as I know, the star tribe has been destroyed for hundreds of thousands of years. How did you survive until now? Also, how did you know that I have the bloodline of the star tribe?" Zhuge Puha could see that Lin Shiqi was beginning to believe him. He was delighted and said, "It is a long story. In fact, countless years ago, the human tribe on this continent was at the bottom of the food chain. At that time, the demon tribe was the overlord of this continent. The human tribe was not even considered as slaves. At most, they were considered as rations. Later, the star tribe suddenly appeared and slaughtered the demon tribe. They saved the human tribe from disaster. Unfortunately, the star tribe did not have a large population and could not exterminate the demon tribe. They could only drive them to the wilderness in the far north. The human race was rescued by the Star Clan. They took the initiative to worship the Star Clan as the God Clan. They worshipped the Star Clan for generations and named this continent the Star Glory Continent. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi recalled the images that suddenly appeared in his mind in the dragon vein. It was indeed a group of silver-robed people slaughtering all kinds of powerful monsters. If all of this was true, then the history that everyone knew now was not true. According to the current records, the Star Clan was extremely arrogant. They regarded themselves as gods and humans as ants. However, this was the opposite of what Juga Puha had said. Sure enough, the winner is king and the loser is a bandit. Juga Puha's expression was also somewhat displeased. He continued, later on, without the demon race as their natural enemy, the human race began to multiply. Brother Lu should also be able to imagine the greed of human nature. As the human race increased in numbers, the resources they enjoyed naturally decreased. Thus, one war after another broke out. In order to stabilize the Star Glory continent, the Star Clan had to take action to suppress the wars in various places. However, they did not expect that the human race would hold a grudge against them. The human race was cunning. They begged the Star Clan to help them perfect their cultivation system. At the same time, they secretly accumulated strength and prepared to overthrow the Star Clan's rule. Strangely enough, over the past hundreds of thousands of years, the Star Clan gave birth to fewer and fewer children. Their bloodline became thinner and their strength gradually weakened. Until hundreds of thousands of years ago, the four saints suddenly rose and led the human race to overthrow the Star Clan and control this continent. From then on, the continent was renamed the Falling Star Continent. He briefly told the secret that had lasted for hundreds of thousands of years. Leng Shiqi thought about it carefully. It really did seem like something that the human race would do. However, he also had a few questions. Even if what you said is the truth, so what? Do you still want to make a comeback and take control of this continent? Moreover, you still haven't explained how the Zhuge family survived. If Brother Zhuge can't explain it, you and I will be the only one who can leave this place tonight, Leng Shiqi said indifferently. Since he had indirectly admitted that he had the bloodline of the Star Clan, Zhuge Puha, who knew about it, was naturally on his blacklist. Zhuge Puha did not mind Leng Shiqi's words. He said, the Zhuge family's appearance was also a coincidence. Just now, I mentioned that the Star Clan had once helped the human race perfect their cultivation system. Moreover, it was increasingly difficult for the Star Clan to reproduce. As the saying goes, everything can be unexpected. When the Star Clan was communicating with the human race about their cultivation system, a couple fell in love. The most unexpected thing was that they actually gave birth to a child. It should be known that the Star Clan was a race that found it extremely difficult to reproduce. Perhaps this was the price they had to pay for being born with great strength. It was already difficult for them to reproduce even if they were from the same race, let alone with the weak human race. This matter immediately shocked all the Star Clan members. Faced with the dwindling population and thinning bloodline, they were shocked to find that the baby's bloodline was not weaker than the Star Clan's. Other than the appearance and the lack of divine power, the baby was no different from the Star Clan members. Hence, he was named Zhuge Xingqian. The Star Clan members were overjoyed. They did not care about the so-called differences between humans and gods and started to reproduce with the human race. However, since then, no new children were born. Only Zhuge Xingqian had the ability to continue the bloodline. However, this could not solve the problem at its root. The Star Clan thought of many solutions. However, at that time, the four saints were born. The Star Clan did not have time to study the bloodline. As the war continued, the Star Clan also realized their ending. Hence, they started to set up many backup plans. As the Zhuge Xingqian's bloodline looked exactly the same as the human race, they hid them among the human race and became the guardian clan of the Star Clan. They hoped that one day in the future, they would be able to restore the glory of the Star Clan. Zhuge Xingqian is the ancestor of the Zhuge family. Lin Shiqi finally understood the origin of the Zhuge family. In his impression, the Zhuge family was a hidden family that was between a first-rate force and a top force. They did not have much of a presence in the outside world. Who would have thought that the Zhuge family was the backup plan left behind by the Star Clan? However, he was even more confused because he clearly had the appearance of a human. According to Zhuge Puha, he should be a member of the Zhuge family. If he did not have his previous memories and did not know the truth about the Zhuge family due to his soul transmigration, it would be fine. However, Zhuge Puha did not recognize Lin Shiqi when the elites met him. This meant that Lin Shiqi was not a member of the Zhuge family. Then, where did he get the bloodline of the Star Clan? To be honest, I don't know why Brother Lu has the bloodline of the Star Clan. However, judging from the complexity of the star map on your body, the purity of your bloodline is definitely not inferior to that of a real member of the Star Clan. The Zhuge family has been waiting for someone like Brother Lu for hundreds of thousands of years. If Brother Lu is willing to return to the family with me, we can completely activate the bloodline in your body. By then, Brother Lu's talent, power, and foundation will reach an unprecedented height. What do you think, Brother Lu? Zhuge Puha stared at Lin Shiqi with a burning gaze. Lin Shiqi did not have any expression on his face. However, thousands of thoughts kept flashing through his mind. He was still trying to determine the authenticity of what Zhuge Puha had said. Judging from Zhuge Puha's behavior, what he had said was most likely true. However, Lin Shiqi was not sure if the Zhuge family's heart had changed. After all, hundreds of thousands of years had passed. No matter how loyal Zhuge Xingqian was back then, after so many generations, would the current Zhuge family still sincerely protect the Star Clan? Moreover, if he went to the Zhuge family and was subdued by a group of experts, what would he do? Chapter 559. It was not that Lin Shiqi was a narrow-minded person, but he had always been cautious. If he went to the Zhuge family and was controlled by a group of masters, who could he seek justice from? Brother Lu, are you worried about your own safety? Zhuge Puha seemed to have seen through Lin Shiqi's worries. He smiled and said, if Brother Lu is really worried, you can inform Steward Gao that I would like to invite Brother Lu to be my guest. If anything happens to Brother Lu, Steward Gao will know. If it doesn't work, I can ask Brother Lu to plant a restriction in my body so that you can take my life at any time. At this point, Lin Shiqi finally nodded and said, I can go to the Zhuge family, but I have 3 conditions. Please say, Brother Lu, Zhuge Puha said hurriedly when he saw that Lin Shiqi had agreed. Lin Shiqi thought for a while and said, first of all, as you said, I have to plant a restriction in you and report my whereabouts to Steward Gao. This is to ensure my safety. Secondly, when we reach the Zhuge family, you have to shut down all the formations so that I can leave at any time. Lastly, no matter what the result is, I don't want anyone else in this world to know that I have the blood of the stellar tribe. If you can agree to these 3 conditions, I can go with you. Zhuge Puha did not hesitate and said solemnly, no problem. In that case, I will make some arrangements tomorrow. The day after tomorrow, I will go with you to the Zhuge family. Okay, I will wait here for Brother Lu. Goodbye. Lin Shiqi said and left immediately. He agreed to go to the Zhuge family because of the blood of the stellar tribe. If he could fully awaken the power of the blood, his strength would definitely soar. No one would go against power. Moreover, he had some confidence. He could see some traces of formations with his supercilious eyes. If the Zhuge family secretly activated any formations, he would turn and leave. If all the formations were shut down, he could teleport away at any time with his fate skill. Furthermore, with eunuch Gao and the Dark Thunder Guards backing him, he believed that the Zhuge family would not dare to play any tricks. After he left, Zhuge Puha took out a mirror, and on the other side of the mirror was an old man. The old man wasn't angry, but he was still imposing. He said, "Pu He, I asked you to gather information about the Star Clansmen. Is there any news?" "Exactly. I've found that person." Hearing this, the elder's eyes widened. Even though he didn't know where he was, the horrifying chi passed through the mirror and made Zhuge Puha's face turn pale. "Half a month ago, I sensed that someone had awakened the star bloodline, and you've already found it?" The old man seemed to be in disbelief that Zhuge Puha could find the Star Clansmen so quickly. The Zhuge family had not been able to find it for generations. Now that they had found it, he was in disbelief. "I wouldn't dare to lie to you. That person's name is Lu Xingji. He's the envoy inspector of the Dark Thunder Guards headquarters. He was on a mission with me this time. I found him by chance." Zhuge Puha explained. "What a coincidence. Have you confirmed it?" "I've just confirmed it. It's him without a doubt. He has also agreed to return to the clan with me." The elder was stunned for a while. Then, he laughed crazily. "Ha ha ha. Good, good, good. Pu He, you've done a great job. Bring him back quickly. There's hope for the revival of the Star Clan." "Oh yes, are you familiar with this person?" "What kind of person is he?" The appearance of Lin Shiqi was great news for the Zhuge family. It was also a chance for the Star Clan to reappear. However, if he was a mediocre person, it would be difficult to handle. "Don't worry, elder. This person is the best in terms of talent, strength, and shrewdness. He's also the champion of this year's elite gathering. I'm inferior to him." Speaking of this, his expression became a little strange. As for his character, it's hard to say. He's bold and reckless, but in fact, he's cautious. He looks crazy, but he can often turn danger into safety. He's greedy and lustful, but sometimes he's unusually generous and ruthless. He's sometimes cold and sometimes passionate. He's a very complicated person. I can't see through him." The elder was silent for a while. "It's okay. As long as he's strong and shrewd enough, it'll be fine." "When will you be back?" "The day after tomorrow." "Okay, I'll go and make some preparations for the bloodline awakening." With that, the mirror returned to normal, reflecting Zhuge Puhi's handsome but slightly tired face. Early the next morning, Lin Shiqi told He Feichen and the others to return to the imperial city first. He was going to the Zhuge family with Zhuge Puhi. The others did not have any doubts. Only Feng Shamo secretly glanced at him a few times. No one knew what he was thinking. Then, while he still had time, he activated Fate. He could teleport to the branch of the Blood Garment Pavilion in Shantai County. This time, he came specially to gather information about the Zhuge family. After all, what Zhuge Puhi said last night was only one side of the story. He was still a little worried and had to gather information from many sides. After obtaining information about the Zhuge family, Lin Shiqi found that this family was indeed very secretive and had a long history. The Blood Garment Pavilion's information could only be traced back to a few thousand years ago. It seemed that Zhuge Puhi's words were true. Other than that, he also found something strange. Every few decades, a young disciple of the Zhuge family would come out to the world to gain experience. Basically, this person would be one of the top super geniuses in Shantai County, and it had been so since ancient times. Even before the Thunderfire dynasty had ceased to exist, there were such rumors. However, the strange thing was that geniuses of this level would definitely become experts that could shake a region. But for some reason, the people of the Zhuge family had never fought for power. When they had enough strength, they would wander around and eventually disappear. When people had almost forgotten about this person, the next generation of geniuses of the Zhuge family would be born. It had been like this for many years. After reading this information, Ling Shiqi could basically believe Zhuge Puhi's words. If he guessed correctly, the Zhuge family of the past had all gone to find traces of the star tribe. Ling Shiqi felt more at ease. After waiting for a day, he teleported back again and waited until night to meet with Zhuge Puhi. Seeing that Ling Shiqi had come as promised, Zhuge Puhi immediately smiled and said, "Brother Lu, you are indeed a man of your words. Let's go now. By the way, Brother Lu can set up restrictions at will. I will not resist. Then I won't hold back." Ling Shiqi formed a seal with one hand, and a red gold flame seal entered Zhuge Puhi's body. Zhuge Puhi's face was immediately filled with pain. This seal was one of the many fire-type spells that Elder Huang had given him. Ling Shiqi even hid a trace of the red gold earth dragon flame in it. As long as he willed it, Zhuge Puhi would die on the spot. However, Zhuge Puha still maintained his elegant smile. He took out a palm-sized astrolabe and pressed it on the ground. Immediately, a small star map spread out. "Brother Lu, please come in. I'm going to teleport back to my family. You can teleport directly from here." "Where is your family?" Ling Shiqi asked as he walked into the star map. Zhuge Puhi smiled proudly and said, "To be honest, Brother Lu, the Zhuge family is actually not in this space. That's why no one has been able to find it for thousands of years." Chapter 560. Ling Shiqi was shocked. Not in this space. Could it be that the Zhuge family's land is a separate space like the illusory spirit secret realm? Zhuge Puha kept forming seals with his hands, and the stars kept shining. Finally, they disappeared. When he looked again, there was no one there. Ling Shiqi was used to things like teleportation, even if it was teleportation across space. Hence, Ling Shiqi was very calm. However, when he saw the scene in front of him, he was shocked. He was standing in the middle of a starry sky. Looking around, it was a starry sky and nebula. The stars were twinkling, and there were meteors flashing by from time to time. It was a beautiful scene. In the starry sky, there was nothing except for a few dilapidated palaces. Ling Shiqi looked down and there were endless stars under his feet. It was as if he was floating in the universe. "This is the Zhuge family's land?" Ling Shiqi murmured. Zhuge Puha had expected Ling Shiqi to be shocked. He answered, "That's right. For a long time, only people from the Zhuge family could enter. If Brother Lu did not have the star bloodline, he would not have been able to enter. This further confirms Brother Lu's identity." "Ha ha ha, Brother Lu, you are finally here. I, Zhuge Yun, have been waiting for a long time." At this moment, an elder walked out from the hall. His face was flushed, as if he had seen a close relative. Zhuge Puha explained, "This is the elder of the Zhuge family, Zhuge Yun." "Greetings, Elder Zhuge." Ling Shiqi also greeted him politely. Zhuge Yun stared at Ling Shiqi. The more he looked, the brighter his eyes became. When Ling Shiqi felt a chill in his heart, Zhuge Yun said happily, "Brother Lu, you are indeed a one-in-a-million genius. It is not a coincidence that you could awaken the star bloodline. Elder, you flatter me. If you have anything to say, please say it." "Ha, Brother Lu, you are so straightforward. Then I will say it." Zhuge Yun lifted his head to look at the starry sky and said in a deep voice, "Regarding the star tribe and the Zhuge family, I believe you already know. My young friend Lu is not a member of the Zhuge clan, nor is he a pure member of the Star clan. Perhaps you are also a descendant of the Star clan and the human race. We can be considered to be of the same origin. Now that you have awakened such a high-purity Star bloodline, you are qualified to activate the many trump cards left behind by the Star clan. At that time, you will have the most abundant resources in the entire continent, and a large number of experts will follow you. As long as you raise your arm and call for help, there will be a day when you will become the ruler of this continent." Zhuge Yun became more and more excited as he spoke, and in the end, he almost went crazy. However, Ling Shiqi's expression was still very calm. Seeing his expression, Zhuge Yun's emotions paused. Little friend Lu, do you have any questions? There are indeed, and quite a few of them, Lin Shiqi replied. Oh. If little friend Lu has any doubts, feel free to ask. Lin Shiqi crossed his arms and said, putting aside the issue of my bloodline, where are the countless resources and experts that you mentioned? I don't believe in such empty promises. Zhuge Yun smiled mysteriously. He did not explain. Instead, he waved his hand, and a star in the sky floated down. It was a star that was as tall as a person. It rotated and floated between Zhuge Yun and Lin Shiqi. Zhuge Yun formed a seal, and the light of the star gradually faded, revealing the scene inside. After seeing what was inside, Lin Shiqi was secretly shocked. There was a person inside this star. This person looked to be in his 60s or 70s. His eyes were tightly shut, and there was no sign of life. He did not understand what this meant. Was he just going to let him see a dead person? At this moment, Zhuge Puha suddenly asked, Brother Lu, do you know how many members of the Zhuge clan are there? Only then did Lin Shiqi realize that ever since he entered the Zhuge clan's territory, he had not seen anyone else. He did not try to hide it, and directly opened his supercilious eyes. All the auras within a 20-mile radius were under his control. However, to his surprise, there was not a single aura within the 20-mile radius. This was strange. There was no end to this starry sky. Could it be that the other members of the Zhuge clan were not here? Zhuge Yun smiled and said, Little friend Lu, you don't have to look. From a certain perspective, the Zhuge clan only has me and Puha. What? Even though Lin Shiqi was experienced and knowledgeable, he could not help but be surprised. As a hidden clan, the Zhuge clan was quite famous in the outside world. How could there only be 2 people? However, Lin Shiqi also keenly grasped the key point in Zhuge Yun's words. Many thoughts flashed through his mind. He looked at the dead person in front of him and said suspiciously, the Zhuge clan has been passed down for hundreds of thousands of years. It can't be just the 2 of you. Then, are the others like this person? He pointed at the person who was wrapped in starlight. Zhuge Yun's eyes flashed with admiration and said, Little friend Lu, you are quick-witted. Look again. As soon as he finished speaking, he made another seal. Something strange happened. The dead person in front of him actually emitted a trace of life. What was even more terrifying was that the trace of spiritual aura that leaked out from this person was actually at the level of oneness of heaven and man. Zhuge Yun's voice sounded. In order to ensure the inheritance of the bloodline, the Zhuge clan has always been passed down through a single bloodline. When a disciple reaches the level of oneness of heaven and man, he will travel all over the continent to look for the descendants of the Star clan and the arrangements left behind. When this person's chi and blood reach the peak and begin to decline, he will return to the clan and enter an eternal deep sleep to maintain his peak combat power. After that, the new generation of disciples will go out. Therefore, the Zhuge clan has at most 5 or 6 people. In this generation, there are only 2 people, Puha and I, left. Little friend Lu, why don't you guess how many powerful people have been sleeping in the Zhuge clan for hundreds of thousands of years? At this point, Zhuge Yun pointed at the starry sky above his head. Lin Shiqi subconsciously raised his head to look, only to see a sky full of twinkling stars. There were simply too many of them. His pupils suddenly contracted and he felt his scalp explode. If these stars were all at the level of oneness of heaven and man or even Tianyuan, once they were released, it was indeed possible to overturn the entire falling star continent. Little friend Lu, do you believe me now? I can also tell you that there are thousands of oneness of heaven and man and hundreds of Tianyuan experts here. This is only a small part of the Star clan's strength. There are still many secrets that have not been uncovered. The terrifying strength has been accumulated for hundreds of thousands of years and is far beyond your imagination. As long as you agree, all of this will belong to you. What you need to do is to completely activate the bloodline and lead the Zhuge clan to restore the glory of the Star clan. I will only ask you one question. Are you willing? In Zhuge Yun's mind, Ling Shiqi's next sentence would definitely be, I am willing. However, he never dreamed that Ling Shiqi would open his mouth and say, it's none of my business. Chapter 561. You, what did you say? Zhuge Yun couldn't believe his ears. Even the heavenly origin stage expert was stuttering. Do you need me to repeat myself? Ling Shiqi said bluntly, no matter how much power you have accumulated, you want to become enemies with the entire continent? If you're tired of living, don't drag me down with you. To be honest, the power that the Zhuge family had accumulated over hundreds of thousands of years was terrifying. Even Ling Shiqi was shocked to the point of being absent-minded. But even if the Zhuge family had thousands of Unity of Heaven realm and hundreds of Sky origin stage experts, if they wanted to become enemies with all the spirit cultivators in the continent, it was still a little too much. Let's not talk about anything else, just the Thunderfire dynasty. The 36 states, the imperial capital, the imperial family hall of worship, the various armies, all of the Unity of Heaven realm and Sky origin stage experts were not much weaker than the Zhuge family. Furthermore, in the Thunderfire dynasty, there were countless experts in the first-rate sects and peak sects. If the Zhuge family really dared to come out, they might not even be able to walk out of the Thunderfire dynasty. Not to mention becoming enemies with all the spirit cultivators in the continent. This was simply courting death. Ling Shiqi would naturally throw himself out first. Zhuge Yun opened his mouth wide and stared blankly at Ling Shiqi. After a long while, he finally reacted. Lu Xingji, this old man can see that you are an ambitious person. It's impossible for you not to be moved. Speak, what conditions do you have? Ling Shiqi laughed in his heart, thinking that this Zhuge Yun was truly an old fox. He turned his face and laughed again. Senior Zhuge is truly insightful. This junior does indeed have a few conditions, but before that, this junior boldly asks, is senior unable to release these people? With that said, Zhuge Yun's expression became somewhat gloomy. The atmosphere in the field paused, and even the air seemed to have solidified. Seeing that Zhuge Yun did not speak, Ling Shiqi knew that his guess was right. If the other party could release those sleeping experts, they would have done so long ago. Why wait until now? Zhuge Yun said in a deep voice, no wonder he has such a high opinion of Lu Yi. You are right. These experts who have fallen into an infinite slumber can only be released by those with a high concentration of Star Clan bloodline. Not only these, but also the various means that the Star Tribe set up back then. That's why I said that only you can lead the Star Tribe back to glory. What I said earlier was indeed a bit too extreme. The Zhuge family has waited for more than 100,000 years for our young friend Lu to appear. I have indeed lost my composure. Just like what our young friend Lu said, with our current strength, it's still wishful thinking to take back the mainland. Therefore, our top priority is to help our young friend Lu completely awaken his bloodline. After that, we'll head to various parts of the mainland to look for the resources left behind by the Star Clan to accumulate more power. Ling Shiqi nodded silently. Zhuge Yun was the one who was speaking in human language. He said, Senior Zhuge is right, but why don't you listen to my conditions first? My young friend Lu, please go ahead. First of all, don't think of me as the son of heaven. Although I have some ambitions, I'm definitely not ambitious enough to become the ruler of the world. Therefore, don't mention about taking back the mainland. In my opinion, we shouldn't have too close a relationship. Otherwise, it won't be good for both of us. To be honest, I've always been a troublesome person. I'm afraid that I'll implicate you one day. Therefore, it's best for us to establish a business relationship. Business relationship? Zhuge Yun frowned. Ling Shiqi explained, that's right. If you want me to do something for you, sure, but you'll have to give me corresponding benefits. On the other hand, if I have something to ask of you, I'll use sufficient rewards to ask for your help. Zhuge Yun waved his hand and said, there's no need for that. My young friend Lu, as long as it's within my ability, I'll definitely do it. However, I only hope that there's a relationship between us where we each take what we need. Senior Zhuge, do you understand what I mean? Ling Shiqi shook his head gently. Zhuge Yun suddenly smiled. So my young friend Lu still doesn't believe me, or are you afraid? Afraid of becoming the enemy of the world? His original intention was to provoke Ling Shiqi, but Ling Shiqi actually admitted it. Yes, I'm afraid, very afraid. In this world, there's nothing more precious than my life. Of course, I'm afraid. At this moment, Zhuge Puha transmitted his voice to Zhuge Yun. Elder, Lu Xingji's temperament is like this. Why don't we agree to his request and keep him here first? Zhuge Yun hesitated for a moment and said, all right, I can agree to this. Then, can we start the first transaction now? Of course. All right, I can help my young friend Lu completely awaken the power of his bloodline. By then, not only will you have the opportunity to obtain the bloodline inheritance technique, your own talent will also be reborn. However, after that, I'll need your help to release the two people who are in deep sleep. Zhuge Yun told him the content of the transaction. Ling Shiqi did not reject this time and agreed without hesitation. Zhuge Yun also secretly heaved a sigh of relief. He never thought that Ling Shiqi would be so difficult to deal with. He said, the bloodline awakening formation has been set up. My young friend Lu, come with me. Then, the three of them walked into a large hall nearby. There was actually a completely different world inside, and an incomparably majestic array that was at least 10,000 feet in size was set up. There were countless tall silver stone pillars around it, and all kinds of complicated incantations were densely engraved on them. In the center of the formation, a fist-sized, sparkling and translucent starlight gem was constantly flashing with dazzling light. This was the eye of the bloodline awakening formation. Zhuge Yun said, my young friend Lu, go in. Ling Shiqi directly walked into the bloodline awakening formation and sat down cross-legged. At the same time, the eye of the formation suddenly burst out with a blood-colored starlight. A strange power surged into Ling Shiqi's body, and the extremely complicated star atlas on his body lit up. What was even more strange was that this time, the star atlas actually left his body, and suddenly the entire hall became a gorgeous starry sky. Seeing this scene, Zhuge Yun and Zhuge Puha were both shocked. Ling Shiqi's bloodline was stronger than they had expected. Zhuge Yun quickly sat down as well. His hands formed strands of starlight and began to operate the formation. Then, the countless stars that Ling Shiqi released began to fly back into his body one by one. Every time he absorbed a star, his aura would change slightly. The change could not be seen in a short time. It was not a change in the aura of spiritual power or temperament, but an ancient and mysterious aura that seemed to come from eternity. Zhuge Yun was surprised and happy at the same time. He said, my young friend Lu, your bloodline awakening is not something that can be completed in 1 or 2 days. You just need to calm down and adjust your breathing. Chapter 562. 7 days later, Ling Shiqi's figure could no longer be seen in the bloodline formation as the entire hall was filled with dazzling starlight. Strangely, there were streaks of blood floating in the starlight. Zhuge Yun's face looked a little haggard. Even though he was a heavenly origin stage elite, maintaining the bloodline array for a long period of time was too much for him. However, his eyes were filled with excitement. He muttered, even the legendary pure-blooded star clansmen rarely need 7 days to awaken their bloodline. According to the history of the Zhuge clan, the longer one stayed in the bloodline formation, the bigger the commotion, and the purer the star bloodline in one's body would be. The ancestor of the Zhuge clan, Zhuge Xingqian, had seen many star clan members awaken their bloodline. However, there were only a few who could reach Ling Shiqi's level. Only God knew how a star clan member with such a pure bloodline like Ling Shiqi could appear in this era where the power of bloodline had almost disappeared. At this moment, the dense starlight suddenly flowed on its own. Countless stars arranged themselves according to a strange pattern, as if forming lines of words. However, no one had ever seen such words before. Zhuge Yun suddenly opened his eyes wide and exclaimed, "This is the bloodline inherited martial skill." "Elder, what is the bloodline inherited martial skill?" Zhuge Puha asked. He was unfamiliar with the term. Zhuge Yun explained, "It's not your fault that you don't know. It is said that the bloodline inherited martial skill was engraved in the bloodline by the ancestor of the Star Clan. This martial skill cannot be passed to outsiders. Only when the bloodline is awakened can it be directly imprinted in one's soul. Moreover, people with different bloodline purity will get different martial skills. However, as long as one can get the bloodline inherited martial skill, he will be heavily nurtured by the Star Clan. It's a pity that the Zhuge clan is at most a branch of the Star Clan. No matter how high the purity of the bloodline in one's body is, it is impossible to get the bloodline inherited martial skill." This is strange. Lu Xingji is not a pure Star Clan member. How could he get the bloodline inherited martial skill? In the end, even he was puzzled. At the same time, a large amount of information suddenly appeared in Leng Shiqi's mind. Legacy Level Cultivation Method, Heavenly Cycle Star God Technique. A system notification appeared before his eyes, discovered the Sovereign Technique, Heavenly Cycle Star God Technique. "Do you wish to learn it?" Leng Shiqi chose no, without hesitation. Since this was a bloodline inherited cultivation method, he would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort. There was no need for him to borrow the system. However, he also found out from the system that this cultivation technique was a supreme level cultivation technique. As far as he knew, cultivation techniques were divided into level 1 to level 9. As for what was higher, he did not know. However, he was certain that the Heavenly Cycle Star God technique was definitely a cultivation technique that surpassed level 9. After he briefly comprehended the cultivation technique, he couldn't help but sigh at how strong this cultivation technique was. It was simply unheard of. The Universe Star God technique drew upon the energy of the stars in the 9 heavens to temper the body, nurture the soul, and seize the energy of the heavens and the earth. When cultivated to the limit, one could cultivate the Universe Star God physique, and one could pluck the stars with a raise of one's hand and overturn the heavens and the earth. One's soul could also roam the starry sky, and the laws of the heavens and the earth would be at one's fingertips. As long as the body was not destroyed, the soul would not die. This cultivation technique was different from the current spirit cultivation system, but it was more or less related. He did not have a clear division of realms. The main thing was how many stars were condensed in the body. When he first cultivated this cultivation technique, he could condense a star, which was called a level 1 star. This was the first level. However, if he wanted to advance to the second level, he would need to condense 10 level 1 stars. 10 level 1 stars could fuse into a level 2 star, and so on. 10 level 2 stars could condense into a level 3 star. The highest level of the Heavenly Cycle Star God technique was the 10th level. If he wanted to cultivate this cultivation technique to the limit, the amount of star energy required was simply unimaginable. Leng Shiqi frowned secretly. This cultivation technique was not difficult to cultivate in the beginning, but the difficulty of breaking through to the next level would increase tenfold. When he reached the end, it could be said that it was difficult to advance even a single step. However, he did not want to think about such a distant matter now. Taking advantage of the large amount of spirit energy and star energy in the bloodline array, he planned to try to cultivate the Heavenly Cycle Star God technique. He immediately began to circulate the cultivation technique. No one had ever guided him before, but he circulated it smoothly as if he had cultivated it before. Just as he successfully entered the cultivation technique, the spirit sea in his body suddenly changed. The originally quiet spirit crystal actually began to violently vibrate, but it showed no signs of shattering. Instead, specks of starlight continuously shot out from the star mark, and in a short moment, his spirit sea actually turned into a sea of stars. Not only that, but his spirit sea also underwent a tremendous change. The stars moved, and countless stars suddenly appeared, turning his spirit sea into the spirit sea. In the outside world, all the spirit energy and star energy in the hall began to madly rush into Ling Shiqi's body. He was like a black hole, constantly devouring all the energy. In the spirit sea, a huge star slowly condensed. However, this star looked somewhat illusory and transparent. This was a rank 1 star. This also meant that Ling Shiqi's heavenly cycle star god technique had entered the first level. At the same time, a new spiritual technique suddenly appeared in his memory, Starlight Sword Qi. Ling Shiqi did not pay too much attention to this Starlight Sword Qi. He was not in a hurry to continue cultivating. Instead, he suddenly had a bold and crazy idea. Immediately, with a thought, he circulated the golden mystic yang skill in his body. The illusory star in his spirit sea was gradually dyed with a faint layer of gold. Seeing this scene, Ling Shiqi secretly smiled. It really works. Just now, he thought of the large amount of cultivation techniques and spiritual techniques in his body. Although he was trying his best to merge them, he could not avoid too many of them. After condensing a rank 1 star, he still needed to condense 9 more stars to advance to the second level. Then, could he merge the various cultivation techniques and attributes in his body into those stars? After his initial attempt, he successfully merged the metal attribute cultivation techniques. This seemed to have opened a strange door for him. Then, rank 1 stars of different colors condensed in his spirit sea. These stars represented the attributes of metal, wood, water, fire, earth, ice, wind, thunder, yin, and yang. 10 known attributes in the world were all transformed into stars by Ling Shiqi. After the 10th yin star was formed, based on the wild evil demon blood beast body, the 10 rank 1 stars automatically gathered and began to merge. This process of merging was much easier than Ling Shiqi's own cultivation techniques and spiritual techniques. In just a moment, there was only a rank 2 star left in his spirit sea that was larger and more condensed. However, this star actually did not have any color. There was only a piece of chaos. Chapter 563. Ling Shiqi stared at the chaotic star in a daze. He didn't even notice that the star-shattering finger had appeared in his memory. He thought to himself, the fusion of the 10 elements will actually return to the chaotic star. He vaguely seemed to have grasped something, but the feeling was illusory. The more he wanted to see it clearly, the more he couldn't see it clearly. He panicked, and the strange feeling disappeared without a trace. He blamed himself for being too impatient, but on second thought, he would condense countless chaotic stars in the future. There would be many more opportunities for him to grasp that strange feeling. When he thought of this, he continued to cultivate and absorb energy. First, he condensed 10 rank 1 stars. Then, he gave birth to a second chaos star. As the cycle continued, there were now 10 chaos stars in his sea of consciousness. Then, these stars fused together and gave birth to the first rank 3 star. The third level of the heavenly cycle star god technique. Different from before, although the rank 3 star was also chaotic, there were still traces of starlight flickering from the inside. At the same time, a new spiritual technique, the heavenly star lock, appeared in his mind. He still didn't get distracted because he knew that there was a huge amount of spiritual energy and star power in the bloodline array to help him cultivate. It would be extremely difficult to find such a place after leaving this place. Therefore, he had to use all his time to cultivate the heavenly cycle star god technique. However, this made Zhuge Yun suffer. In fact, Ling Shiqi's bloodline had been successfully awakened the moment the inheritance technique appeared. However, he immediately started cultivating on the spot. This made Zhuge Yun have to maintain the array, which made him suffer. However, Zhuge Yun could also see that Ling Shiqi was at a critical moment in his cultivation. Moreover, the cultivation technique seemed to be going smoothly. He gritted his teeth and held on. Ling Shiqi only took 2 to 4 hours to cultivate to the third level of the heavenly cycle star god technique. However, when he broke through to the 4th level, a day had passed. At this moment, in Ling Shiqi's sea of consciousness, a huge level 4 chaotic star floated. Starlight flickered within it, and he had an additional spiritual technique called starfall. This time, he paid attention to it. The falling star technique was a very strange spiritual technique. It did not have any grades, and the power of the spiritual technique depended entirely on the realm of the practitioner. This was because meteor fall required one to self-destruct an astral body. The higher the grade of the self-destructing celestial bodies and the greater the number, the greater the power. It could be said that this was a spiritual technique that sacrificed one's cultivation realm. However, one could not self-detonate 3 celestial bodies at the same time. Otherwise, one would lose one's life. Unless it's a matter of life and death, I can't use this star fall technique, he thought to himself. It was also at this moment that some unexpected changes happened to his body. The star mark on the spirit crystal in his body lit up again, and the power of the stars in the hall suddenly condensed. The rich starlight kept shrinking until it was almost liquid, and then slowly circulated around Leng Shiqi. The mysterious star chart on the surface of Leng Shiqi's body appeared again, and directly swallowed the starlight, but the star chart kept flashing. Finally, there was a sonorous sound, and the world shook slightly. An extremely weak trace of the power of heaven and earth penetrated into his body. Leng Shiqi's cultivation aura suddenly skyrocketed, and he actually crossed a big realm and broke through to the spirit gang realm. That's the heavenly cycle star god technique. The bloodline inheritance technique he obtained is the heavenly cycle star god technique. Zhuge Yun was shocked. Leng Shiqi had brought him too much shock. His emotional fluctuations in the past few days were probably not as much as the fluctuations in his emotions in the past few decades. Zhuge Puha was also stunned, and his usual elegance and arrogance were gone. Heavenly cycle star god technique? Is it the supreme technique of the star clan, the heavenly cycle star god technique? Yes, and every generation of star clan leader will improve this technique, and finally integrate it into the spiritual cultivation system of the human clan. The specific grade has long been immeasurable. Zhuge Yun explained. Zhuge Puha also cast an envious look, but not jealous, because the better Leng Shiqi's talent and the stronger his technique, the greater the hope of the star clan rising again. Leng Shiqi also did not expect that he would inexplicably and extremely smoothly break through to the spirit gang realm. Originally, he planned to break through after entering the Tomb of Heaven. The reason was none other than that he was going to use the special characteristics of the Tomb of Heaven to reach the depths of his soul, and see if the consciousness of the system had come back to life. Now, even if he broke through early, he had to give it a try. Immediately, he stopped running his technique, and fully controlled his primordial spirit. Taking the opportunity of stealing a trace of the power of heaven and earth, he sank into the deepest part of his soul. The emerald green eyes of Leng Shiqi's primordial spirit suddenly narrowed. There was indeed another Leng Shiqi here, curled up and sleeping soundly. Obviously, this was the consciousness of the system. It really came back to life. And the consciousness of the system was stronger than last time, both in size and degree of solidification. However, compared to last time, the current Leng Shiqi was stronger. Boom! Leng Shiqi's primordial spirit directly turned into the body of the wild demon blood beast, and the violent, ancient, and evil breath spread out. The consciousness of the system also opened its eyes, which were still emotionless. This time, Leng Shiqi did not talk nonsense with it. He raised his hand and slashed down. A flash of blade light flashed, and time and space stagnated, and the void collapsed. Before the consciousness of the system could react, it was cut into two by Leng Shiqi. At the same time, an invisible blade light stirred into the mind of the consciousness of the system, and completely crushed it into pieces. The familiar black and white light overflowed. Leng Shiqi waved his hand, and the light was sucked into his body. The consciousness of the system seemed to have reacted only when it was on the verge of dissipating, but it could no longer speak. It could only leave a resentful look before it completely disappeared. Leng Shiqi chose to ignore it. This time, he had made ample preparations. With the support of his wild evil demon blood beast body's spiritual energy and the god ephemeral epiphyllum, he swiftly and decisively wiped out the system's consciousness. Immediately, his consciousness returned to his body, and a system prompt appeared in front of him. The system is about to be upgraded. It will take 100 natural days. During the upgrade, the system will not be able to be used. Do you want to upgrade? The familiar system prompt appeared again, but this time, the system upgrade would take more than 3 months. It was somewhat inconvenient. But the upgrade must be upgraded. He transferred the things in the system space into the mustard bracelet, and summoned the Goo King from the pet space and put it in his clothes. Only then did he choose, yes. Administrator, Host 01 requests to upgrade the system. Do you agree? Yes. System upgrade commencing. Progress 0.001%. Chapter 564. After doing all this, Lin Shiqi was about to get up, but at this moment, the word illusion that had been floating in his sea of consciousness suddenly trembled. Then a series of words appeared. This was the follow-up to the 5-God flowing light technique and the accompanying spiritual skills, 5-God illusionary technique and flowing light illusion technique. 5-God illusionary technique was a 6th-level illusionary spiritual skill. It could be divided into 5 parts, and the body could freely shuttle between the illusions. Unless the opponent's spiritual power was far superior, it would be difficult to distinguish the real from the fake. Flowing light illusion technique was a 6th-level illusion technique. This illusion technique was not offensive, but its greatest effect was to confuse the mind of the victim, and even to control the victim to a certain extent. What he cared about was that Meng Tianzong's consciousness seemed to have disappeared. At this moment, Lin Shiqi regretted upgrading the system. He should have cultivated the 5-God illusionary technique and flowing light illusion technique before upgrading the system, including the spiritual skills that came with the heavenly cycle star god technique. However, Lin Shiqi gave it some thought. His talent in mental illusions was already pretty good. Moreover, he also had the star bloodline. Even if he relied on his own ability to cultivate, it wouldn't be difficult. He could also begin to adapt to the 100 days without the system. Seeing that Lin Shiqi stopped cultivating, Zhuge Yun no longer maintained the formation. He walked forward slightly weakly and said, "Congratulations on successfully awakening the star bloodline and obtaining the inheritance technique. This is all thanks to Senior Zhuge. Please give me the technique, and I will help you release the 2 Zhuge ancestors." Lin Shiqi said politely and then got down to business. Zhuge Yun stretched out his finger and wrote the technique in the air. He said, "You can comprehend it by yourself. I will go and rest for a while." Lin Shiqi nodded and began to comprehend the nameless technique. More than 2 hours later, he moved his hands and released starlight. From the starry sky, 2 stars fell. 2 Zhuge ancestors who were in the realm of oneness of heaven and man were sleeping in them. The starlight grew dimmer and dimmer until it completely disappeared. The 2 of them floated down to the ground and stood upright. There was no aura coming from their bodies, making them look like 2 zombies. Lin Shiqi changed his hand seal, and the spirit energy in his body was rapidly extracted. When the 2 people began to slowly recover, his spirit energy had been depleted by 70 to 80%. It seemed that the price to awaken these sleeping experts was not small. The 2 of them opened their eyes at the same time, but their eyes were empty. Lin Shiqi actually felt a faint connection with the 2 of them. Zhuge Yun felt the attraction of the spiritual energy fluctuation and walked over. At this time, his complexion was a little better. "Little friend Lu, they have just woken up. It will take some time for them to regain their consciousness. Moreover, they will completely obey your orders. Even if you ask them to commit suicide, they will not hesitate." "I see, then how do we hand them over to Senior?" Lin Shiqi asked. Zhuge Yun said, "It doesn't matter. Little friend, you only need to let them go to the Starfall dynasty and the Northern Wei dynasty respectively to search for the remains of the Star clan. If they find anything, just report it to me. No problem. In this case, can I leave? The time he took to come here was far beyond his expectation. The 29 guards might have returned to the imperial capital. Unexpectedly, Zhuge Yun shook his head and said, "Little friend, don't worry. Now, we might as well make another deal." Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows. "Senior, please go ahead." Their first deal allowed him to obtain the supreme cultivation method of Heavenly Star God and break through to the gang's spirit realm. He was very interested in making another deal. I have mentioned before that our Zhuge clan has been searching for the remains of the Star clan and the contingency left behind by them for a long time. Unfortunately, there are too few people in the Zhuge clan, and the scope of our search is mainly within the Lei Yan dynasty. Although we have found a lot, we can't explore them without pure bloodline. The tricky thing is that some of the secret treasures have long been occupied by some sections. Although they can't open them, they have to keep them. Therefore, most of the places can't be explored for the time being. I have a recently discovered secret treasure here, and I would like to invite you to explore it. The reward is that you can choose any 3 things inside. Zhuge Yun told him the content of the deal. Leng Shiqi felt that this deal was doable, but of course, he had to make sure before agreeing. He asked, "Senior, may I ask where that place is? Is there any danger in it?" "This secret treasure is in the Ningyang County. There must be danger in it, but you have such pure bloodline of the Star clan. You will be safe." Zhuge Yun said as he took out a jade slip. The specific location of the secret treasure is recorded in it. According to what Zhuge Yun said, Leng Shiqi only needed to run errands. It seemed to be a profitable deal. Ningyang County. Leng Shiqi murmured. Ningyang County was a county near the west of the Lei Yan dynasty. It was a relatively ancient place, and it was said that it was one of the origins of the human race. Until now, there were still many forces in the form of tribes in Ningyang County. Di Chuan came from Ningyang County. However, the problem was that Ningyang County was relatively far away. If he went there for no reason, it would inevitably arouse suspicion. "Alright, I am willing to make this deal, but I'm afraid I won't have time to go there in the near future." He hesitated for a moment, but still agreed. At most, he would wait for an opportunity to take a mission that required him to go to Ningyang County. Zhuge Yun laughed. "Haha, it's fine. I have waited for almost my entire life. I am not in a hurry." Leng Shiqi took the jade slip and said, "Then I will take my leave first." Then, Zhuge Yun raised his hand and set up a small formation. "Go ahead." Leng Shiqi cupped his hands at the 2 of them, walked into the teleportation formation, and disappeared. Zhuge Yun looked at the place where Leng Shiqi disappeared. His eyes flickered, and no one knew what he was thinking. After a while, he suddenly sighed, "This boy is really unpredictable. Not to mention you, even this old man can't see through him. I can see that he is an ambitious man. Even if he is unwilling to be too deeply involved with the Star tribe, he could have awakened a few experts in the unity of heaven and man realm or the heavenly origin realm to help him achieve his ambition. It would have been easy for him to establish a sect or fight for power. However, he did not do so. In the face of such a huge temptation, he could still maintain his original intention. This kind of person who can control his own ambition is the most terrifying. Puha, I may not be able to see the day when the Star tribe rises. Only if you wholeheartedly assist him, you may be able to see that day. Elder. What do you mean? Zhuge Puha was slightly flustered. Zhuge Yun smiled kindly and said, Lu Xingji will not do things that he is not confident in. Even if he has enough power and influence in the future, to lead the Star tribe to rise again, I am afraid it will be a long time later. I am afraid I will not be able to hold on until then. Alright, you should return to the imperial capital and cut off contact with Lu Xingji. Yes, I understand. Zhuge Puha looked very well behaved at this time, and actually looked a little like a child. Then, he opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something. However, in the end, he did not say anything and was teleported out. There was only Zhuge Yun left. He stared blankly at the place where Zhuge Pu had disappeared. However, gradually, his lips curled into a strange smile. At the same time, his eyes revealed traces of the netherworld energy. Chapter 565. For Leng Shiqi, the reason why he could ignore the experts was because he did not trust Zhuge Yun. He had only met Zhuge Yun once, and everything he had said was just a one-sided story. It was still unknown whether Zhuge Yun wanted to reappear the Star Clan or fulfill his own ambitions. Besides, Leng Shiqi could also bring out a few experts in the unity of heaven and man realm. Even so, it was enough for him to dominate. However, the problem was that the Zhuge family's techniques were too iconic. It was easy to see through their origins. In the future, if Zhuge Yun really wanted to conquer the world, Leng Shiqi would be seen as an accomplice. That was why Leng Shiqi resisted the greed in his heart and did not bring out any experts. When Leng Shiqi returned to the imperial capital, an extremely old man with a weak face was leaning on a dragon bed in the imperial palace. He was the person with the highest authority in the Thunderfire dynasty, Lei Qingjun. Beside him, a person bowed slightly with his hands clasped behind his back. This person was Eunuch Gao. Lei Qingjun held 3 memorials in his hands. In fact, all 3 memorials reported the same thing, which was the process of how Leng Shiqi annihilated the Thunder Alliance and the Sky Crane Gang. However, these reports were sent from the Slaughtering King's residence, the Discipline Commission of Shantai Prefecture, and the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guards. More than 80% of the contents were similar. As for the remaining similarities and differences, they were naturally just flattering themselves. Lei Qingjun immediately saw through the clues, but this was a common occurrence. He slowly said, "Little Gao, you've taken in a good disciple." In this world, only Lei Qingjun could call Eunuch Gao, Little Gao. Eunuch Gao prepared his words in an instant and said, "It's all thanks to you, Master." "Alright, you've been with me for so long. How can I not understand you? You're just paving a way out for yourself. It's not just you. Many people are doing this." Lei Qingjun's voice became weaker as he spoke. So what if he knew? He could only struggle at death's door. The only thing he could do was to pave the way for the Thunderfire dynasty. This was to prevent any unforeseen events from happening after his death. Lei Qingjun looked at the memorial again and said, "This Lu Xingji did a good job. He suppressed the Thunder Alliance with lightning speed and massacred the Sky Crane Gang. After news of this spread out, those rats hiding in the dark won't dare to come out for a short period of time. This can be considered as sharing some of my burden. You can decide how you want to reward him. Go." "I understand." Eunuch Gao bowed and left. Lei Qingjun continued to pick up a memorial beside him. Beside him, there was a huge pile of memorials. Before Eunuch Gao left, he also took a deep look at Lei Qingjun. Lei Qingjun's illness was already incurable. Even moving his body was very difficult, but he still read memorials day and night, worrying about the affairs of the world. Originally, Lei Qingjun could rely on medicinal pills to recuperate for a few more years. But if this continued, he was afraid that he would not be able to last past these 2 years. Was Lei Qingjun a fatuous ruler? Of course not. Was he a wise ruler? That was also not the case. Lei Qingjun had sat on the throne for dozens of years. He had always been diligent and conscientious, without the slightest bit of slack. However, he was a ruler who guarded his achievements. He had never seen any achievements in his life. Even though he had managed the internal affairs of the Thunderfire dynasty in an orderly manner and did not cause any trouble, he had never thought of completely resolving the conflict between the Spirit Cultivator sect and the dynasty. He had never thought of attacking the world and expanding his territory. Without doing these 2 things, he could not be called a wise ruler. In the end, he knew that his lifespan was about to run out. Instead, he was prepared to make a move on those Spirit Cultivator sects. This was a good start, but whether he could last until that day was unknown. Eunuch Gao sighed in his heart. This was also the reason why he was in a hurry to nurture his own team. He had long seen that once Lei Qingjun died, no matter who ascended the throne, the Thunderfire dynasty would fall into chaos. First of all, the Thunderfire dynasty would face a great purge. At that time, blood would flow like rivers. Also, those spirit cultivator sects would take advantage of this time to appear. What was even more terrifying was that the spies hidden in the Starfall dynasty and Northern Wei dynasty would definitely not be at ease. Therefore, although the Thunderfire dynasty was relatively calm now, it was actually surging with undercurrents. Eunuch Gao returned to the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters with a heavy heart, only to see that Leng Shiqi was already waiting for him. I already know about this matter and have reported it to His Majesty. Eunuch Gao naturally knew what Leng Shiqi was talking about. However, as he was speaking, his footsteps suddenly stopped. You have reached the spirit astral realm? Leng Shiqi cupped his hands and said, this disciple was lucky to break through. Yes, you are already half a step into the spirit astral realm. With your cultivation foundation, breaking through to the spirit astral realm is only a matter of time. What kind of spirit astral realm did you condense? Eunuch Gao asked. Leng Shiqi reached out and turned over his hand. A mini dragon-shaped flame floated out, and the air instantly became hot and dry. This disciple condensed the spirit astral realm with the red gold earth dragon flame, the red gold dragon flame. Some people had already known that he had a heaven and earth variant with fire property. So did Eunuch Gao. Therefore, Leng Shiqi did not hide anything. On the contrary, on the way back, he took time to condense the spirit astral realm with the red gold earth dragon flame to cover the heavenly star astral wind. The pure gold earth dragon flame was a natural counter to demons and ghosts. Even Eunuch Gao's cold nether scripture was suppressed by it. He immediately frowned and said, you are quite lucky to be able to refine the heavenly flame. You must have refined it after the elite meeting, right? You don't need to explain. I won't ask about your own luck. However, since you are my disciple, you should learn something from me. Speaking of this, Eunuch Gao threw over a mustard seed bag. There is the nether chi in it. You can use it to condense the nether spirit astral wind. There are also the follow-up exercises of the Cold Hell book and the matching spiritual skills. It is your reward for breaking through to the Gang spirit realm. Leng Shiqi immediately bowed and said, thank you, Master. This is just the reward for your progress in cultivation. In this trip to Shantai Prefecture, Li Jueqing secretly played tricks on you, but you still overfulfilled the task. You did a good job. It was rare for Eunuch Gao to praise someone directly, but he suddenly asked, however, do you know what your greatest contribution is? In this trip to Shantai Prefecture, Leng Shiqi had done a lot of things in the shortest time. Of course, the greatest contribution was to wipe out the Thunder League and the Sky Crane Gang. But then again, why would Eunuch Gao ask such a well-known question? Leng Shiqi pondered for a moment and said, my greatest contribution should be to wipe out the treacherous Thunder League. Wiping out the Thunder League and the treacherous Thunder League were two different things. If the Thunder League was just a simple organization, even if Leng Shiqi succeeded in the task, it would just be a normal contribution. At most, people would think highly of him. However, at the critical moment of the Thunderous Dynasty, he killed the Thunder League at the time of rebellion. The nature of this was completely different. What kind of contribution was this? This was quelling a rebellion. Even 10 tasks added together were far less than this huge contribution. After this matter was done, the Dark Thunder Guards of Shantai Prefecture, the Discipline Department, the Slaughtering King's Mansion and Eunuch Gao all received a great reward. And this matter gradually spread in the Thunderous Dynasty. Lu Xingji's name was also remembered by many people, which was a great boost to his reputation. Eunuch Gao nodded and said, yes, you saw it clearly. So His Majesty gave you a great reward. Chapter 566. Leng Shiqi smiled secretly. The reward was not the most important thing. The most important thing was that he had made a contribution. He finally gained a foothold in the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guards. With this contribution, he had broken through to the gang's spirit realm. His strength had improved a lot, and he could take over the position of the Commissioner of Internal Supervisor. Of course, he had to ask for the reward. He said, "Master, what reward did His Majesty give me?" Eunuch Gao asked back, "What kind of reward do you want?" Ling Shiqi was slightly stunned. Could he take the initiative to ask for a reward? But since Eunuch Gao said so, he would definitely talk nonsense. He quickly thought about it. He had just broken through and was not short of cultivation methods and spiritual skills. If he had to say what he needed most, it was undoubtedly a spiritual weapon. He was not short of sabers and swords. The only thing he lacked was a 6th-level spiritual spear. Jintao's Stormy Wave spear was powerful, but every time he used it, it lacked a little power. The most important reason was that he did not have a 6th-level spiritual spear. In addition, what he lacked most was time. After breaking through to the gang's spirit realm, he opened the door to a new world, because he could condense many different attributes of gang spirit, such as blood-refining evil gang, divine fantasy gang, cold gang, and so on. Furthermore, there were still many spiritual techniques that he had yet to cultivate. For example, there were spiritual techniques that came with the Heavenly Cycle Star God technique and the 5 God Flowing Light technique. There were also spiritual techniques that he could cultivate in the Cold Nether Treasure Manual, Nirvana Remnant Wind Scroll, and Purple Pole Thunderclap Record. So he needed a period of time to settle down and practice. So he said, "I want a 6th-level spiritual spear, and I want to practice in seclusion for a while." That's it. On the contrary, Eunuch Gao was a little surprised. He was very clear that Ling Shiqi was definitely a very greedy person. This time, he had given him the opportunity to take the initiative to ask for a reward, but he only asked for a 6th-tier spirit spear. A 6th-level spiritual weapon might be hard to come by outside, but for Eunuch Gao, it was really nothing. As the saying goes, those who are content are happy. That's all I want. What's more, Master has already given me the order of Internal Supervisor. I plan to take over as the Commissioner of Internal Supervisor after I finish my practice. This is the best reward. Ling Shiqi said frankly, as if money was nothing. Hee hee. Eunuch Gao laughed dryly. Do as you wish. Take out your token and I'll give you 20,000 merit points. A grade 6 spirit spear is probably worth around 10,000 merit points. Take my token and go to the treasury to choose. As for the rest, I'll give it to you as compensation. As for the closed-door training, I can only give you 2 months at most. You also know that the headquarters of the Dark Thunder Guard is extremely busy, and I also have some things for you to do. 2 months is the limit. Ling Shiqi naturally didn't have a choice. He could only agree. Then he came to the treasury of the headquarters of Dark Thunder Guards, which was a deep hall. 2 guards of Gang's spirit realm stopped him. He took out Eunuch Gao's token, and the 2 men confirmed it for a while before one of them led him into the main hall. There was nothing else in the hall except for a huge bronze door. The man took out several tokens in a row and struggled for a long time to open the door. It was very large inside, with all kinds of resources piled up like mountains, but the quality was not good. Ling Shiqi looked around and found that the highest level was only the 4th or 5th level. At the end, there was a large door. What was different was that this door was pitch black, and it faintly emitted a terrifying spiritual energy fluctuation. The man who led him in struggled for a long time and finally opened the door. As soon as the door was opened a crack, Ling Shiqi felt the spiritual light and treasure chi blowing on his face. There are grade 5 and grade 6 resources in here. You can choose by yourself, but I have to watch here. Ling Shiqi nodded and went straight to the area where spiritual weapons were placed. Most of them were grade 5 spiritual weapons, and there were only a few grade 6 ones, but there were about 40 or 50 of them. He didn't want to waste time, so he directly found 4 grade 6 spirit spears. He was looking for a spiritual weapon that matched with the Golden Wave spear, so he quickly made a choice. This spirit spear was dark blue and looked gentle like water, and there was a trace of water flowing on the body of the spear. Grade 6 Spirit Weapon, Gue Water Formation Spear. If he wanted to exchange for the Gue Water Formation Spear, he needed 11,000 merit points, which Ling Shiqi could accept. Now he had 9,000 merit points left. Since he was already here, he planned to see if there was anything else he needed. For spirit cultivators in the spirit astral realm, there were also pills to speed up cultivation, called Tian Gang Pill. This pill could not only speed up cultivation, but also continue to temper the spirit astral realm and improve the power. However, this Tian Gang Pill was already a grade 6 spirit pill, and masters who could refine it were also rare, which led to the Tian Gang Pill being a kind of product that was not for sale. You couldn't buy it at all in ordinary spirit cultivator shops. In a place like the imperial capital, you might be able to find a shop with Tian Gang Pill, but most of the shops would not sell it easily. They were more willing to barter. If you really wanted to buy it with spirit stones, you could only go to an auction to try your luck. The last time Ling Shiqi participated in the Celestial Treasure Enterprise auction, the Tian Gang Pill was also auctioned, but at that time, Ling Shiqi did not need to use it, so he did not care too much. He also found a Tian Gang Pill here. Good heavens, one pill cost 3,000 merit points. One had to know that although the Tian Gang Pill and the Gue Water Formation Spear were both grade 6 resources, the pill was only a one-time use item, while the spirit weapon could be used for a long time, so the price was completely different. The Tian Gang Pill actually cost 3,000 merit points, which was a bit exaggerated. According to Ling Shiqi's knowledge, He Fei Chen and the others could only get a few hundred merit points from doing a mission. It could be seen that the Tian Gang Pill was indeed very precious. He reached out and took the 3 Tian Gang Pills. The 20,000 merit points that he had just received were instantly reset to 0, which made him somewhat helpless. After exchanging for the Gue Water Formation Spear and the Tian Gang Pill, Ling Shiqi headed back. Who knew that when he returned to the courtyard of the 29th Guard Division, he would see a person sitting on a stone bench in the courtyard. That person was Lian Yi. Seeing Lian Yi, Ling Shiqi knew that the other party had come to collect a debt. Sure enough, when Lian Yi saw Ling Shiqi walk in, she said in a strange tone, "Lord Lu, I have heard of your great name often recently. You just came to the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters and killed the Inspector Wei Xiangming. You even showed off at the auction and bought a beauty and dual cultivation technique at a high price. TSK, you really have good luck with women. Recently, you even made a miraculous contribution in Shantai County. Lord Lu, no matter where you go, you can't hide your brilliance. I just don't know if the famous Lord Lu still remembers the conditions he agreed to back then." Ling Shiqi acted as if he did not hear the mockery in Lian Ye's words. He smiled and said, "So it is Lady Lian Yi. I haven't seen you for a long time, and you have become even more charming. I never go back on my promises. If Lady Lian Yi has any requests, please tell me." Chapter 567. Back then, when Lian Yi caught Ling Shiqi's identity, Ling Shiqi promised her something in order to stabilize her. Of course, this favor had to be returned. However, he didn't promise her anything. He still wanted to see what Lian Yi wanted to say first. Lian Yi gave him a supercilious look. "Lord Lu, do you plan on letting me stand here in the cold wind?" Ling Shiqi immediately felt a headache. It was clearly Lian Yi who was sitting here like a lord. However, he still made a "please" gesture and said, "Lady Lian Yi, please come in." The two walked into the conference hall and Lian Yi set up a restriction. It seemed that the matter she wanted to say was not simple. As soon as she made a move, Ling Shiqi could tell that she had just entered the spirit aperture realm. Considering her age, her cultivation speed was very fast. Lian Yi also sensed that Ling Shiqi was spying on her cultivation realm. She also subconsciously tried to sense Ling Shiqi's realm, but she couldn't sense it. The only explanation was that Ling Shiqi's cultivation had surpassed her by a whole realm. "You broke through to the spirit astral realm?" Lian Yi exclaimed. Leng Shiqi said indifferently, I just broke through recently. His tone was as indifferent as if he had eaten this morning. However, the more this tone was, the more Lian Yi felt like she was going crazy. When the two of them met in the illusory spirit's secret realm, they were both in the spirit pulse realm. Only a few years had passed, and there was already a whole realm difference between them. Lian Yi grew up with the title of a blessed girl. In the entire imperial capital, the only girl who was stronger than her in terms of cultivation talent was Mo Lu. In fact, with her current age and cultivation, she would be outstanding even in the top sections. However, she met a freak like Leng Shiqi. Right, I remember that you entered the dragon vein to cultivate. No wonder your cultivation progressed so fast. Lian Yi suddenly thought of this and immediately whispered, No, I have to let foster father take me to the dragon vein to cultivate. Leng Shiqi's heart skipped a beat. He still didn't know Lian Ye's specific identity. From Lian Ye's words, her foster father seemed to be a big shot. How could one enter the dragon vein just because they wanted to? What kind of person could directly arrange for people to enter the dragon vein? Instead of thinking blindly, he might as well ask directly. Miss Lian Yi, may I know your identity in the Dark Thunder Guard? Who would have thought that Lian Yi would bluntly glance at him and say, What does it have to do with you? Let's get down to business. Leng Shiqi couldn't help but rub his nose. It seems like you're the one who changed the topic, right? What instructions does Miss Lian Yi have? Please speak. Actually, it's not a big deal. Lian Yi sat down and said casually, I just want you to help me assassinate someone. Cough. Leng Shiqi coughed dryly. How could he say that killing someone was not a big deal? Moreover, Lian Ye's identity was definitely not simple. The person she wanted to kill was naturally not ordinary either. He had to ask clearly about this matter. He frowned and said, Miss Lian Yi, when we were in Donglin City, I made it very clear that if the matter is beyond my ability, it won't do. I know. Don't worry. The person I want you to assassinate is only in the spiritual pulse realm. You are now in the gang's spirit realm. Isn't it a piece of cake? Lian Yi said easily. For the current Leng Shiqi, the spiritual pulse realm was indeed easy to kill, but he still asked worriedly, who is that person? What's his identity? Lian Yi glanced at Leng Shiqi inexplicably and said, the person you want to assassinate is called Lei Haoqing, the 9th prince of the Thunder Flame dynasty. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi suddenly felt confused. He stared at Lian Yi with extremely complicated eyes. Was this girl stupid? How dare she assassinate the 9th prince of the dynasty? And she wanted him to assassinate him? Unless he was tired of living, he wouldn't assassinate a prince. However, Leng Shiqi quickly calmed down and asked tentatively, Are you joking, Miss Lian Yi? Of course I'm not joking. Don't look at me like that. I'm telling the truth. Lian Yi shook her head. Leng Shiqi immediately shouted to the door, Come, see the guest out. Lian Yi also screamed, Lu Xingji. What do you mean? Do you want to break your promise? Leng Shiqi sneered, Miss Lian Yi, there's a limit to joking. Assassinate a prince? Do you think there are no masters around the prince? Besides, even if you really kill the 9th prince, do you think they won't find out that it was you or me? Miss Lian Yi, you'd better find someone else to do such a suicidal act. Pitiful Lian Yi suddenly said innocently, I didn't say I was going to kill Lei Haoqing. Leng Shiqi paused. A mouthful of blood was stuck in his throat, making him feel extremely uncomfortable. Lian Ye's eyes flashed with cunning, I just said I was going to assassinate Lei Haoqing, but I didn't say I had to kill him. Only then did Leng Shiqi realize that he seemed to have been played. I don't know what Miss Lian Yi is planning. Assassinating a prince is a crime punishable by death. I definitely can't agree to it, he said firmly. Does Lord Lu not want to hear the details? It might even be beneficial to you, Lian Yi said as she blinked her watery eyes. At this moment, Leng Shiqi finally realized that this Lian Yi was getting more and more difficult to deal with. Then, Miss Lian Yi, please make the long story short. At this time, Lian Ye's tone also became heavy. I don't know what wrong medicine that Lei Haoqing took. A long time ago, he often came to bother me. Recently, he went to find my foster father to propose marriage. What's annoying is that although my adoptive father didn't agree, he didn't explicitly refuse either. Who doesn't know what Lei Haoqing is thinking? He just wants to rope in my adoptive father as a bargaining chip to fight for the throne. But why doesn't he look in the mirror? He doesn't have talent, he doesn't have shrewdness, and he doesn't have ability. Just based on his glib tongue, he wants to take me as his wife and rope in my adoptive father. Even Prince Ying and Prince Qi couldn't rope in my adoptive father. Just based on him, he wants to fight for the throne. What wishful thinking. Lin Shiqi understood the cause of the matter. He also heard two key points from Lian Ye's words. One was that the ninth Prince Lei Haoqing's ability was average and wasn't thought highly of. The other was that Lian Ye's adoptive father was definitely a powerful figure. Even those princes would fight to win him over. Lian Yi continued, I'm not asking you to actually assassinate him. I'm just putting on an act to let him know that he can be in danger at any time. He should stay at home and stop bothering me. So it was like that. Lin Shiqi couldn't help but secretly ridicule. Why didn't you just say it from the start? Why did you have to take a few deep breaths? However, even if it was just for show, he still wouldn't agree. Assassinating a prince is a serious matter. I really can't do it. Miss Lian Yi, please change the condition. Lian Yi revealed an expression that said she already knew this would happen. She slightly raised her neck like a proud swan and said, My adoptive father is the commander of the Dark Thunder Guards, Heavenly Sovereign He Yan. Chapter 568. Lin Shiqi was shocked. He never thought that the foster father Lian Yi spoke of was actually the commander of the Dark Thunder Guards, Heavenly Sovereign He Yan. No one knew the name of the commander. Lin Shiqi had only occasionally heard people mention that the commander was called Heavenly Sovereign He Yan, but it seemed that no one had ever seen him before. The Grand Commander rarely attended the annual meetings. Even if he did attend, he wouldn't come in person. Therefore, this Grand Commander was very mysterious. Lin Shiqi also thought that Lian Ye's identity was not simple, but he never thought that she was the foster daughter of the commander. No wonder she could participate in the elite meeting with the identity of a late-stage spirit pulse realm cultivator. No wonder she said that her foster father could send her to the dragon vein. No wonder those princes worked so hard to rope her in. That was the commander of the Dark Thunder Guards. He was in charge of the tens of thousands of Dark Thunder Guards and all the most secretive information in the Thunderfire dynasty. Perhaps no one in the Thunderfire dynasty knew more secrets than him. Perhaps even the current emperor did not know many secrets, but Heavenly Sovereign He Yan knew. His existence was not only a threat to outsiders, but also a deterrent in terms of information. If any prince could rope an Empyrean black flame, they would be able to casually find the filthy things that the other princes had done and easily topple them. It could be said that as long as they could rope in Heavenly Sovereign He Yan, it was equivalent to obtaining half the throne. But then again, not to mention roping in Heavenly Sovereign He Yan, it was extremely difficult to even see him normally. It was unknown how Lei Haoqing met Heavenly Sovereign He Yan and felt that his chances were very high, so he kept pestering Lian Yi. Lian Yi did not have many subordinates. Although there were some people who followed her, it was impossible to count on them to assassinate Lei Haoqing. Therefore, she planned to find Lin Shiqi. However, Lin Shiqi was stubborn. She could only bring out her foster father, Heavenly Sovereign He Yan. She did not believe that he would not yield. Lian Yi proudly said, As long as you help me this time, the previous favor will be written off. I can even put in a few good words for you in front of foster father. Even if his old self has a slightly better impression of you, it will still be a great reward. Lian Yi was right. If Lin Shiqi could establish a relationship with this mysterious commander through Lian Yi, the benefits would be unimaginable. But then again, was assassinating a prince a joke? If he wasn't careful, he would get himself into trouble. He pondered for a moment and said, Miss Lianyi, it's not that we can't do this, but we must formulate a perfect plan. We absolutely can't expose that it was us who did it. Lianyi gently smiled, inwardly thinking that the other party had indeed submitted to the might of Empyrean Black Flame. She confidently said, I already have a pretty good plan. Looks like Miss Lianyi came prepared. I'm all ears. The plan is very simple. I've already found out that Lei Haoqing will be leaving the Imperial City in a few days. At that time, you'll disguise yourself as an assassin and intercept him. Then, you'll just need to make a few gestures and run away. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi's head began to hurt again. Do you think Lei Haoqing will leave the Imperial City by himself? He will definitely have experts protecting him. Moreover, once he makes a move, how can he just walk away like that? If the system hadn't been upgraded, he could have used the Fate skill to teleport away. But now that the system map was closed, the teleportation skill couldn't be used. Lian Ye's plan was too easy. Leng Shiqi was just about to refute when he keenly caught sight of the craftiness in Lian Ye's eyes. He immediately understood. Miss Lianyi, please tell me the details of the plan. It's best if you don't tell me half of it. Tisk, boring. Lianyi rolled her eyes and continued, I've already asked around. This time, Lei Haoqing is going to Pinghui County to rope in the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. This matter is known by the other princes, so Lei Haoqing's trip won't be very smooth. Perhaps the other princes also want to assassinate Lei Haoqing, but they definitely won't dare to do it in the provinces near the Imperial City. This is because the Imperial City is the most important place for the Hidden Thunder Guards. There are many hidden Thunder Guards everywhere. I think Lei Haoqing also feels that no one dares to assassinate him near the Imperial City. We'll do the exact opposite. When the time comes, I'll transfer away the Hidden Thunder Guards in that area and prepare an opportunity for you to act. I'll also investigate the strength of Lei Haoqing's guards. I won't let you easily take risks. After the matter is done, the other princes will definitely be the suspects and not me. Lei Haoqing's courage isn't much to begin with. After being assassinated, he'll definitely hide for a period of time. Naturally, he won't have time to bother me. Lianyi spoke of her complete plan. At first glance, it seemed pretty good, but in Leng Shiqi's eyes, it was still full of flaws. Without mentioning the first part, if Leng Shiqi really managed to escape, then there would be many flaws in the follow-up. For example, everyone knew that no one dared to assassinate Lei Haoqing near the Imperial City. Thus, it was very easy for people to think that someone might have deliberately shifted the blame to the other princes to muddy the waters. There might even be people who guessed that perhaps this assassination was arranged by Lei Haoqing himself. Regardless of which it was, the entire Imperial City would thoroughly investigate this matter. Also, although Lianyi could transfer away the Hidden Thunder Guards, this matter couldn't be easily discovered. Unless Celestial Venerable He Yen personally covered it up for her, it would be exposed sooner or later. If Celestial Venerable He Yen really did this, then he could also directly warn Lei Haoqing to stop bothering Lianyi. Thus, it was clear that this was Lianyi acting on her own initiative. At the same time, Leng Shiqi couldn't help but admire Lianyi. She actually thought of a way to assassinate a prince so that she wouldn't be bothered. Could it be that she didn't know how sensitive the current situation was? The slightest movement could lead to great chaos. If he had to give an evaluation of Lian Ye's plan, Leng Shiqi could only say that it wasn't reliable. Lianyi saw Leng Shiqi's bitter expression and immediately became unhappy. I know that this plan isn't that great. If you have a better plan, you can tell me directly. Leng Shiqi thought hard for a while, then asked, Lei Haoqing would need at least 1 or 2 months to go to Pinghui Prefecture and return. That way, wouldn't you have some peace and quiet? Why would you want to assassinate him? Moreover, as long as he doesn't win over the Grand Commander, he definitely won't give up. Thus, your plan is only treating the symptoms and not the root cause. You make it sound nice. do you have a better plan? Leng Shiqi said, I do. You really do? Tell me. Lian Yi hurriedly said. A two-pronged approach. Leng Shiqi extended 2 fingers and said, I can give Lei Haoqing some warning and trouble halfway, but it definitely won't be an assassination. This will make him focus more on the struggle for power. However, the root of this problem is still you, Miss Lian Yi. Me? Lian Yi pointed at herself. That's right. If you want Lei Haoqing to completely give up on you, it's very simple. You just have to find someone to marry. Chapter 569. Marry? Lian Yi suddenly screamed. Fortunately, she had set up a restriction in advance. Otherwise, no one would know what was going on inside. Absolutely impossible. What kind of rotten idea is this? Her face was full of unwillingness. Leng Shiqi said carefully, Miss Lian Yi, let me ask you a question first. Which prince do you think the commander will stand on? This. Lian Yi frowned. She thought for a while and shook her head. I don't know. Then let me answer you. As the commander of the Dark Thunder Guards, Heavenly Venerable He Yan will not support any prince. Leng Shiqi said in a deep voice. The position of the commander of the Dark Thunder Guards is too important. In the struggle for the throne, he must remain neutral and only be loyal to His Majesty. Otherwise, the first to die will definitely be the commander. Therefore, no matter how much Lei Haoqing pesters you, it is impossible to win over the commander. From the commander's point of view, the only way to establish a relationship with him is through you, Miss Lian Yi. If Lei Haoqing gives up this time, then there will be other princes pestering you next time. The only way to resolve this matter once and for all is for you to have a partner. You don't have to marry. You can find someone pleasing to the eye to act as a shield. Once this matter is settled, you will also save the commander a lot of trouble. It can be said to be killing many birds with one stone. After hearing this, Lian Yi fell into deep thought. Leng Shiqi naturally hoped that Lian Yi would accept his suggestion. This way, he would at most harass Lei Haoqing, then he could go into seclusion to cultivate. After a while, Lian Yi said, You are right. My considerations were too simple. Now there is a change in the plan. Since Lei Haoqing wants to go to the Thousand Illusion Sword sect, let him go. When he comes back, you can make your move. This way, I can have some peace and quiet for a long time. Moreover, I have also thought of a way for you. I will go to the Blood Clothing Pavilion and issue a mission to assassinate the hidden Thunder Guards. You can also pretend to be an assassin of the Blood Clothing Pavilion to assassinate Lei Haoqing and put all the blame on the Blood Clothing Pavilion. In any case, the Blood Clothing Pavilion will not reveal their employer's information. This way, we will be safe. As for finding a shield, let me think about it. At this moment, Leng Shiqi's heart was on the verge of breaking down. He had been going around in circles for a long time, and now, he was going to get himself involved. Pretending to be an assassin of the Blood Garment Pavilion? Lian Yi would never have imagined that the person standing before her was a genuine Blood Garment Pavilion assassin. In terms of strength, Leng Shiqi could be called a golden-striped blood-clothed assassin. Now, in order to return Lian Ye's favor, the Blood Garment Pavilion was accused of assassinating a prince. However, this was indeed a good idea. It would allow him to hide his current identity to the greatest extent. He would also be able to shift his attention to the blood-clad pavilion. In the eyes of outsiders, only the assassins of the Blood Garment Pavilion could accept a mission like assassinating a prince. Moreover, everyone knew that the Blood Garment Pavilion was just a sword in someone else's hand. The most important thing was to find the real culprit behind the scenes, so they would not really go against the Blood Garment Pavilion. Leng Shiqi nodded and said, The method is fine, but before that, I must obtain detailed information about Lei Haoqing's guards. At that time, if there is any danger, I will retreat. Whether or not I assassinate him is not important. The most important thing is to make Lei Haoqing feel lingering fear. If Miss Lianyi can agree, I will take the risk and make this trip. Seeing that Leng Shiqi was finally about to agree, Lianyi immediately said, okay, it's a deal. It's a deal. Leng Shiqi said, during this time, I will be in seclusion at the 29th Guard Division. When the time comes, Miss Lianyi can send someone to find me. Lianyi smiled and said, then I will not disturb Lord Lu's cultivation. I will take my leave first. Leng Shiqi cupped his hands and sent Lianyi away. He had a headache and thought to himself that it was best not to owe a debt of gratitude. It was really too troublesome. Thinking of this, he suddenly remembered that he still owed Eunuch Gao a big favor. He did not know what Eunuch Gao would ask him to do. Leng Shiqi shook his head and threw away the messy thoughts. Then he called He Feichin and said a few words before entering the secret room to begin his seclusion. He needed to do 3 things in this seclusion. First, he needed to consolidate his cultivation. Then, he needed to condense various kinds of spirit highland. Spirit cultivators in the spirit astral realm used their own spirit power as the foundation. In addition, they used external objects to steal a trace of the power of heaven and earth to condense spirit highland. Therefore, the spirit astral realm was much stronger than the spirit aperture realm. For example, he used the crimson gold earth dragon flames to condense the crimson gold dragon flames. Even if he did not consume the power of the fire seed, as long as he used his spirit power, he could display 30 to 40% of the power of the crimson gold earth dragon flames. It must be known that every time he used the crimson gold earth dragon flames, the fire seed would weaken very quickly. This meant that he could not use the crimson gold earth dragon flames for a long time and could only use it as a trump card. However, the crimson gold dragon flames was completely different. As long as he had enough spirit power, he could use it wantonly. Moreover, 30 to 40% of its power was already shocking enough. It was far stronger than ordinary fire attributes spirit highland by several times. Next, he planned to condense the cold nether spirit highland. After all, Eunuch Gao had already prepared the materials. It was the most convenient. In addition, he also had the wind and thunder power absorbed from the wind thunder divine luck stone. It was also a part of the power of heaven and earth. It could be used to condense wind and thunder attributes spirit highland. The Blood Slaughter 7 Fiend Art and 5 God Flowing Light Art were relatively special cultivation methods. The Blood Slaughter 7 Fiend Art could cultivate the blood refining Fiend Art, but it did not need to rely on external objects. It needed to feed on one's own blood essence. After cultivating it, every move consumed one's blood essence. It had a strong burst of power, but the disadvantage was that it could not be used for a long time. But for an assassin, it was a one-hit kill. If it was a protracted battle, it meant that one had already failed. The 5 God Flowing Light Art directly communicated with heaven and earth through spiritual power. From there, one could condense the divine dream spirit highland, which could greatly enhance the power of illusions. It was a pity that the 10,000 goo spirit devouring art required a large number of special goo worms to cultivate the spirit highland. The crimson ice crystal art also required extremely cold items. Therefore, Leng Shiqi could only condense the above few types of spirit highland. Of course, a normal spirit cultivator being able to cultivate one type of spirit highland was already the limit. Those who had 2 types of spirit highlands were extremely rare, and Leng Shiqi was able to cultivate 6 types of spirit highlands at his current stage, so he should be satisfied. In addition to condensing spirit highland, many high-level cultivation methods could be cultivated. For example, the follow-up cultivation method of the Cold Nether treasure book that Eunuch Gao gave him not long ago had a 6th-level spirit technique, Cold Nether Hell. The Nirvana Remnant Wind Scroll and Extreme Purple Thunder Sound Record also had Whirlwind and Extreme Purple Lightning Hand respectively, and they were both 6th-level spirit techniques. After arranging his own cultivation process, Leng Shiqi finally began his closed-door cultivation. Chapter 570. On a night more than a month later, a huge procession was traveling on a wide official road. There were 4 palanquins in the middle of the procession, and the one at the front was a royal palanquin with golden patterns. It was luxurious and noble. There were 3 palanquins at the back. They were also more exquisite, but not as luxurious. There were dozens of guards at the front and back of the palanquins. Every one of them had spiritual energy flowing through them. They were all experts at the 4 realms of the sky realm. The person sitting in the palanquin with golden patterns was the 9th prince of the Thunderblaze dynasty, Lei Haoqing. At this moment, Lei Haoqing's face was glowing, and the corner of his mouth was brimming with a proud smile. Beside him, there was a young eunuch kneeling and massaging his legs. Lei Haoqing laughed and said, "Haha, the top sect, the 1000 Illusionary Sword sect, has submitted to me. Now, my forces are even stronger than the 4th and 13th princes. I'm only slightly weaker than Big Brother. Let's see if those people still dare to look down on me. Of course, Your Highness, you're the true son of heaven. In the future, the Thunderblaze dynasty will be yours." The young eunuch flattered. "You can't speak carelessly. However, you're right." Ha ha ha. Lei Haoqing laughed even more impudently, as if the throne was already beckoning to him. He suddenly asked, "Where are we now?" The young eunuch looked outside and replied, "Your Highness, we'll be at Pingwan City soon. After that, we'll be at the imperial capital." Pingwan City. Yes, don't rest in the city. Send a few people to buy some supplies. We'll hurry back to the imperial capital. Lei Haoqing restrained his smile and said seriously, "It's been more than a month. I don't know what they've done. We have to go back as soon as possible. There's also that damned girl Yan Yi. She's just a wild girl adopted by Heavenly Venerable He Yen. She really thinks she's something. If we can rope in Heavenly Venerable He Yen and obtain those countless secrets, the throne will be in the bag." Just as Lei Haoqing was fantasizing about the future, a person wearing a golden patterned blood robe was standing on a hill 15 kilometers away. Anyone with some knowledge could recognize that this person was wearing the golden patterned blood robe assassin from the blood clothing pavilion. And this person was Ling Shiqi. After more than a month of seclusion, he was called out by Lian Yi, saying that the time had come. Ling Shiqi did not want to waste any more time. First, he quietly went to the nearest branch of the blood-clothed pavilion. After checking, he found that someone had issued a mission to assassinate the Yin Thunder Guards. Thus, he informed the Blood Garment Pavilion that they did not need to take this mission too seriously. They just needed to put on an act. At the same time, he was directly promoted to a golden-striped blood-clothed killer with the cultivation of Gang's spirit realm. He also got several Heaven Gang elixirs, which was a big harvest. After that, he had spurred his horse and arrived at the path that Lei Haoqing had to take to return to the imperial capital. Now, Lei Haoqing's group was completely exposed to him. Being in Gang's spirit realm, the scope of his Byakugan had expanded to a radius of 30 miles. There were 60 or 70 people in Lei Haoqing's guards. Most of them were in spiritual pulse realm, a dozen in spiritual aperture realm, and several in spiritual gang realm. This arrangement was comparable to the high-end combat power of a second-rate sect. This was somewhat inconsistent with the information that Lian Yi had given him. According to the intelligence, there were only 2 gang spirit realm masters around Lei Haoqing, but now there were 5. Obviously, the 3 extra people must be from the 1000 Illusion Sword sect. It seems that Lei Haoqing has succeeded in getting the support of the 1000 Illusion Sword sect, Ling Shiqi said secretly. When he mentioned the 1000 Illusion Sword sect, he thought of Ozu. He didn't know how Ozu was doing in that small secret realm. He had said that he would not come out until he reached the spiritual aperture realm. With his talent and unique cultivation environment, he should have reached the spiritual aperture realm after such a long time. In addition to Ozu, Ling Shiqi also remembered that he and Delta Origi had been chased by the gang spirit realm masters of the 1000 Illusion Sword sect. At that time, if Wu Xiang hadn't arrived in time, he would have probably died there. When enemies met, their eyes burned with hatred. However, now was not the time for revenge. His goal was, of course, Lei Haoqing. Although there were 3 more Gang Spirit Realm Masters in the team, as long as there were no oneness of heaven and men, Ling Shiqi had nothing to fear. If it was more than a month ago, he wouldn't have dared to say this, but now it was different. Although it was not a long time, he had condensed several kinds of powerful gang spirit and cultivated a lot of high-level spiritual skills. His combat strength had improved a lot. Now, if he were to fight with Elder One of the Sky Crane sect again, it would not be so difficult. Ling Shiqi was now very confident in his strength, but he would not be arrogant enough to break into the guards and kill Lei Haoqing. After all, his task was not to kill Lei Haoqing, but to give him a warning and let him know that someone wanted to kill him. He turned one hand and an ice crystal longbow appeared in his hand. This was the 5th level spiritual weapon he chose in the Gu God sect, the Xian Ice Bow. He had not used this Xian Ice Bow since he got it. It was really useless because he didn't have a matching spiritual skill for archery. He also didn't expect that the Xian Ice Bow would come in handy at this time. He pulled the bow to a full moon, but there was no bow and arrow in his hand. Suddenly, bursts of crimson cold air gushed out in front of him and condensed into an ice crystal bow and arrow. This was not the end. Suddenly, the crimson bow and arrow bloomed with the color of blood. A strong blood aura spread out and completely dyed the bow and arrow scarlet. This was the blood aura that assassins of the Blood Cloak Pavilion were best at, and it was also the terrifying blood aura. Ling Shiqi narrowed his eyes and directly locked on to Lei Haoqing, who was 15 kilometers away, through the Byakugan. His mental strength was also running wildly, and an invisible storm faintly appeared behind him. He wanted to kill Lei Haoqing from a distance. No one could do such a thing from 15 kilometers away, and no one would think of it. Not to mention the bow and arrow, even a spiritual caster could not use a spiritual skill that could cover 15 kilometers. Moreover, how could you lock on to the enemy's position from 15 kilometers away? It should be known that the slightest difference could lead to a huge error. As long as you were slightly off track, you would not know how far off track you were. But Ling Shiqi could totally do it. First of all, his strength was strong enough. He had a variety of high-level cultivation methods, and he also had the supreme cultivation method of Heavenly Star God. With this alone, he was not much weaker than a master at the late stage of Gang Spirit Realm. In addition, his physical strength was also very strong, and he had opened up all the spiritual meridians and spiritual cavities in his body. It was not a problem for him to shoot an arrow more than 10 kilometers away. The key was that he could also use his majestic mental strength to control the bow and arrow, which was enough to shoot an arrow 15 kilometers away. Ling Shiqi calculated the speed of Lei Haoqing's movement through the Byakugan. After a few breaths, he loosened his fingers, and an arrow like a bloody meteor pierced the night sky and shot 30 kilometers away. At this moment, Lei Haoqing was still happily fantasizing about the future. Suddenly, the 2 guards at Gang Spirit Realm on both sides of his palanquin changed their expressions. Chapter 571. The 2 guards in Gang Spirit Realm suddenly reined in their horses, and the people in the 3 sedan chairs behind them jumped out and looked up at the sky. In the night, they saw a blood-red meteor shooting towards them at an amazing speed. At first, it was just an inconspicuous red dot, but in the blink of an eye, the blood-red meteor had approached. The horrible evil chi contained in it was frightening even from a distance. Who is it? Assassin! Protect the Emperor! Lei Haoqing's 2 guards in Gang Spirit Realm shouted at the same time. The old man in fine clothes slapped out, and a stream of evil chi burst out. In it, one could vaguely hear the wailing of evil ghosts, which was extremely gloomy. The one-armed man next to him lit up a single saber in his left hand, and a powerful pure yang saber gang rose to the sky, as if to tear the world apart. The other 3 experts in Gang Spirit Realm of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect reacted a little slower. They also drew out their swords, and the violent sword gang swept in all directions. The 5 experts in Gang Spirit Realm joined forces to attack the blood-red meteor. They thought it would be easy to destroy it, but the blood-red meteor suddenly changed its direction in midair and circled around, dodging all the attacks. The 5 of them turned pale with fright. Seeing the bloody meteor shooting straight at Lei Haoqing's palanquin, the 5 of them immediately surrounded the palanquin tacitly. Immediately, 5 dazzling spiritual gang appeared and protected the palanquin. With a loud clang, the 5 spiritual highlands were slightly distorted. Fortunately, they managed to block this strange attack. What happened just now happened in a few blinks of an eye. It was not until then that the other dozens of guards realized what had happened. All of them protected Lei Haoqing as if they were facing a formidable enemy. What a joke! If Lei Haoqing really died here, all of them would be buried with him. Maybe their families would be implicated because of this. Who on earth dares to plot against the 9th prince? Do you know that this is a serious crime that can lead to the execution of all 9 generations of your family? The old man in luxurious clothes shouted. His eyes were also looking around, but he did not find any clues. Lei Haoqing, who was sitting in the palanquin, was already pale from fright. His body was drenched in sweat. His cultivation talent was average, and he was already 30 years old, but he was still in the early stage of the spirit pulse realm. Therefore, the movement of several gang spirit realm practitioners outside just now was no different from the collapse of heaven and earth for him. Of course, this was nothing. What truly terrified him was that someone had actually come to kill him. Who in this world would dare to kill him? Who wanted to kill him? Who had the ability to kill him? There was no need to think about the answer. It must be the other princes. Especially the 1st prince, Prince Ying, the 4th prince, Prince Qi, and the 13th prince, who was favored by the emperor, were the most suspicious. Lei Haoqing trembled as he said fiercely, "They must have been afraid that I had the support of the 1,000 illusionary sword sect and surpassed them, so they tried to kill me." Good, my good brothers. Outside, the guards were nervous for a long time, but there was no movement in the surroundings. After the time it took to burn a stick of incense, the old man in luxurious clothes withdrew his spiritual gang and turned to walk into the imperial palanquin. "Your Highness, are you all right?" After such a long time, Lei Haoqing also calmed down a little. He said, "Mr. Mo, I'm fine. What's going on outside? Why is there no movement for a long time?" Mr. Mo said, "Just now, there was indeed a sneak attack by a master, and his means were strange and unpredictable. The 5 of us joined hands to block him. The man failed to kill him, so he probably knew that he had no chance and fled." Hearing this, Lei Haoge felt a little relieved. Whether the assassin could be caught or not was a matter for later. At least he was safe now. He asked again, "Mr. Mo, can you infer from the assassin's spiritual skill which master he is?" The blood-red flowing light just now was a very strong gang qi, called Blood Evil Gang. Therefore, the assassin must be a golden-striped blood-robed assassin from the blood-robed pavilion. Mr. Mo said in a low voice. Blood-robed pavilion? Lei Haoqing was also shocked when he heard these 3 words. Blood-robed pavilion was a world-famous assassin force, and it was even more notorious in the Thunder Flame dynasty. It was also known as one of the 7 unique sects in the world. In terms of strength, it was definitely far superior to the 1,000 illusionary sword sect, which was also a top sect. But even if he knew that the assassin was from the blood-robed pavilion, what could he do? Was he going to attack the blood-robed pavilion? That was obviously impossible, so what Lei Haoqing wanted to know most now was who hired the blood-robed pavilion assassin. "Mr. Mo, can you find out who the employer is from the blood-robed pavilion?" Mr. Mo suddenly looked embarrassed and said, "Your Highness, you don't know that the blood-robed pavilion never divulges any information about the employer. Even if we get the employer's information by various means, maybe that person is just a puppet. As far as I know, the real murderer will not show any flaws, but I think the murderer must be among those people." He said it very obscurely, but it was also very clear. Lei Haoqing's face turned blue and white, and his eyes were constantly changing. He asked again, Mr. Mo, do you think the blood-robed pavilion assassin has a chance of succeeding in the assassination with you 5 masters in the gang's spirit realm? Mr. Mo shook his head and said, it's almost impossible, so I think this may just be a warning to your highness. Warning? Lei Haoqing showed an unhappy look. What a good warning. Let's wait and see. Then, Lei Haoqing and others continued to move forward cautiously. Ling Shiqi, who saw all this, smiled slightly. He had fulfilled Lian Ye's request and didn't show up from the beginning to the end. If he could be found out by others in this way, he would admit defeat. Then he turned and left directly, leaving only the frightened Lei Haoqing and the panic-stricken guards. The next day, Ling Shiqi returned to the state of closed-door training. Now he didn't have the system, so he could only rely on himself to practice and comprehend the spiritual skills. He couldn't delay it at all. The news that Lei Haoqing was assassinated on his way back spread like wildfire, and the whole imperial capital was shocked. The first thought in many people's minds was not to guess who the murderer was, but to realize that the fight for the throne had become so fierce. It was common for those princes to form cliques and fight for power and profit. There were also many people who secretly set up obstacles, but there had never been such a thing as assassination. Lei Haoqing's assassination was like a signal, a fuse, which instantly raised the conflict between the princes to the most tense point. In Prince Ying's mansion, Prince Ying was Lei Haoyan, the first prince. As the first prince, he was not favored at first, because his birth mother's identity was very ordinary. But Lei Haoyan was very capable. When he came of age, he took the initiative to join the army. He had been on the battlefield for a long time and made countless military exploits. When he was in his 30s, he was conferred the title of Prince Ying and was not driven away to his fief, which showed that he was valued very much. Now Lei Haoyan was in his 40s. After receiving the news that Lei Haoqing was assassinated, he only said one sentence, petty tricks. Chapter 572. Prince Qi's Palace. Prince Qi was the 4th prince, Lei Haoran. He was not the eldest son, but his mother was the empress. Therefore, when Lei Haoran reached adulthood at the age of 18, he was given the title of Prince Qi. From then on, he became the center of attention. Until now, his henchmen had spread throughout the imperial court, and he had many strategists by his side. It could be said that he had established his own faction. At this moment, he was conversing with a capable strategist. Mr. Yan, what do you think about the assassination of Lei Haoqing? The man with the goatee opposite him smiled. There are only 2 possibilities. First, the other princes could not hold it in. Secondly, someone did it on purpose in order to mess up the situation. Lei Haoran also looked thoughtful. If it's the first possibility, who do you think did it, Mr. Yan? If it's the second possibility, who's the one secretly adding fuel to the fire? Among all the princes, only Prince Ying and the 13th prince have the ability to hire the golden-striped blood-clothed assassins from the Blood Garment Pavilion. However, the traces are too obvious. In fact, the 2 of them are the least suspicious. If it's not one of the princes who did it, then this matter is worth thinking about. I'm afraid that someone will come to disrupt the situation. Lei Haoran did not say anything, but his hands were clenched tightly. At the same time, the 13th prince, Lei Haoyun, also received the same information. Lei Haoyun was Lei Qingjuan's youngest son. He had just turned 20 this year. Whether it was his appearance, personality, or behavior, he was very similar to Lei Qingjun. Therefore, Lei Qingjun doted on this youngest son very much. Just because of this favor from the heavens, a large number of court officials and spirit cultivators came to seek refuge. Lei Haoyun frowned. Sigh, Lei Haoqing and I don't get along well. Now, I'm afraid that many people are suspecting me. The tree wants to be quiet, but the wind will not stop. In the depths of the palace, Lei Qingjun threw out the report that recorded this matter. His face looked calm, but his eyes were filled with rage. Cough cough. Suddenly, he coughed violently. An old eunuch beside him hurriedly fed him a pill and patted his back. Only then did he feel better. Little do, I'm not dead yet and they're already so daring. When I'm dead, do they still want to rebel? The little do he spoke of was the head steward of the servants' administration. He was in charge of all the eunuchs in the palace. Even Eunuch Gao was his subordinate. He smiled and said, "Your Majesty, please don't be angry. There is something strange about this matter. Maybe someone is deliberately slandering you. No matter what the truth is, the situation in the imperial capital will definitely change." Speaking up to here, Lei Qingjun paused for a moment, and a trace of determination flashed through his eyes. "Little do, you go and prepare for that matter. It must be done within a year. Your Majesty, there's no need to be in such a hurry, right?" Eunuch Du asked in surprise. Lei Qingjun said sternly, "We can't wait any longer. In order to resist foreign aggression, we must first settle our internal affairs. If we don't suppress those brats, we will fail for sure. Go." This servant receives the order. Eunuch Du could only accept the order and leave. Lei Haoqing's assassination midway attracted the attention of all the higher-ups. Even His Majesty was alarmed. But no one would have thought that Lian Yi, who arranged this matter, just didn't want Lei Haoqing to bother her. Even Lian Yi herself wouldn't have thought that the struggle in the imperial capital would become even more intense because of her. Several days later, the 2 months Ling Shiqi had been in seclusion for finally came to an end. On this day, He Fei Chen knocked on the door to Ling Shiqi's secret room. "Sir, Eunuch Gao sent someone to pass on a message. He wants you to go over." Ling Shiqi walked out of the secret room and asked, "His calculations are quite accurate. Did anything happen in these 2 months?" He had secretly snuck out to assassinate Lei Haoqing. No one knew that he had left. He Fei Chen immediately began to talk about this matter with a smile of exultation. "Apart from this, our 29th Guard Squad has also completed 3 missions, all of which went very smoothly. It has to be said that Feng Mo is truly powerful. Once, if it weren't for him, we would have lost several people." Ling Shiqi laughed secretly. Feng Shamo was indeed very powerful as the personal disciple of the blood-robed pavilion master. "Oh, by the way, these are the materials sent from the Western Wilderness Prefecture. They have been sent twice." He Fei Chen took out 2 mustard seed bags and said. Ling Shiqi probed inside with his spiritual force. There were a lot of resources in the 2 mustard seed bags, but their grades were very ordinary. They added up to about 170,000 to 180,000 spiritual stones. He took out some awakening elixirs and commonly used healing elixirs from the mustard seed bags and gave them to He Fei Chen, saying, "You have worked hard during this period. You can share these with everyone." This lowly subordinate thanks my lord. He Fei Chen didn't say any more courteous words and happily received it. Then, Ling Shiqi went straight to the cold nether pavilion and met Eunuch Gao. Eunuch Gao looked up and down at Ling Shiqi and said slowly, "Your strength now is not weaker than the late stage of Gang's spirit realm. You have also made contributions, so you are qualified to take over as the eunuch envoy." "That's my intention." Ling Shiqi nodded. He had planned to be promoted as the eunuch envoy by himself after coming out of training. "Well, you can do it in 2 days. At that time, you will also be in charge of several guards, and your status and rights will be announced soon." Hearing this, Ling Shiqi felt a little strange. It seemed that Eunuch Gao was very eager to promote him as the eunuch envoy. He probably wanted him to do something. Sure enough, Eunuch Gao continued, "When you are stable as the eunuch envoy, do me a favor." Ling Shiqi thought to himself that what was to come would come. The debts owed would be paid back sooner or later. He had just repaid Lian Ye's favor a few days ago, and now it was Eunuch Gao's turn. Eunuch Gao had helped him to bear the destruction of the small chaotic cave of 5 elements, which was a big favor. He immediately cupped his fists and said, "Master, please instruct me. Li Juqing schemed against us last time. Of course, we can't just let it go. Eunuch Gao's tone was cold. We are now in charge of 8 counties in the west of the Thunderfire dynasty, but there are actually 9 counties in the west. Do you know who is in charge of that county? Although Ling Shiqi didn't know, he immediately guessed it. Li Jucheng. Eunuch Gao said sternly, that's right. There was once when we were seriously injured, and there were many things going on in the palace, so he secretly took away one of our counties. That county was Ningyang County. Hearing the words, Ningyang County, Ling Shiqi's heart skipped a beat. Isn't the secret treasure of the Star clan that Zhuge Yun mentioned in Ningyang County? If Eunuch Gao sent him to Ningyang County, he could take the secret treasure along the way. Right now, Li Zhangtao, the patrol inspector of Ningyang County's Dark Thunder Guards, is Li Jucheng's trusted aide. However, he is a complete piece of trash. His cultivation of unity of heaven and man was forcefully broken through by relying on external objects. Ningyang County is in endless chaos. How can such a person be the patrol inspector of a county? Eunuch Gao's words were full of disdain for Li Zhangtao. Ling Shiqi understood that Eunuch Gao wanted him to go to Ningyang County to seize power. Chapter 573. Eunuch Gao continued, I will check the official documents of Ningyang County for you. You will go to Ningyang County as an inner supervisor, which is half a level higher than Li Zhangtao. It is also good for you to do things. If you can overthrow Li Zhangtao and replace him, the previous favor will be written off. Not only that, I can also grab the position of deputy director for you. Deputy director. There were only 36 deputy directors in the whole Dark Thunder Guards, and the 4 directors were not all hegemonic and dictatorial people. Many things were actually handled by the deputy directors. It could be said that the 36 deputy directors were already big shots with great power. But those deputy directors were all great masters in the realm of oneness of heaven and men, and each of them had a strong background. How could it be easy to replace them? This is not only a private matter of our family, but also the emperor's will. Eunuch Gao's words shocked Ling Shiqi. He soon thought that this might be acquiesced by Lei Qingjun. His Majesty did not want to see the Li family in the Dark Thunder Guards too powerful. He cupped his hands and said, I will live up to your trust, Master. I believe in your ability. Get ready to set off in a few days. I'm waiting for your good news. Eunuch Gao had the intention to see him off. Ling Shiqi immediately went out. He turned around and took the inner supervisor token to be promoted to an inner supervisor. Soon after, the news that he became an inner supervisor spread wildly inside the Dark Thunder Guards. Although the name Lu Xingji had been quiet for a while in the past 2 months, it was still amazing when it was mentioned. Now he suddenly became an inner supervisor. There was a lot of discussion. Lu Xingji, as the head of the elite society, is really talented. Some time ago, he killed the conspiracy of the Thunder Exterminating Alliance and the Tianhe Gang, which is also a great merit. But these are not enough to be an inner supervisor. Yes, especially the inner supervisor of the War Thunder Guards, who is basically a great master in the realm of oneness of heaven and men. Not to mention qualifications and merits, he is not qualified in terms of cultivation. You can't say that. You know he killed a master in the late stage of Gang's spirit realm in Shantai County. His strength can't be underestimated. With Eunuch Gao's support, it's not impossible for him to become the head of the eunuch. Sai, who asked him to be so talented, capable, and have connections. We can't compare to him, we can't compare. Alright, we're just casually talking. Don't go looking for trouble with him. He's not someone to be trifled with. Correct. Ling Shiqi had not been in the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters for long, but he had left a deep impression on people. He had only been here for a few days, but he had dared to kill Wei Xiangming in front of Manager Hai. That kind of crazy ruthlessness made people not dare to provoke him. However, the fact that ordinary Dark Thunder Guards didn't dare to touch him didn't mean that no one dared to. For example, Li Juecheng, one of the 4 great managers. Previously, he had schemed against eunuch Gao and Leng Shiqi, thinking that it was impossible for Leng Shiqi to complete the mission of eliminating the Thunder Destruction Alliance. Unexpectedly, not only did Leng Shiqi complete the mission, he even exceeded the quota. This contribution wasn't something a single mission could compare to. It was a great contribution to quelling the rebellion. Li Jueqing was secretly resentful that he had tried to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice. He also admitted that he had underestimated Leng Shiqi. He didn't expect eunuch Gao to be able to invite Zhang Rui, the discipline commissioner of Shantai County. Since Leng Shiqi came back, he had been in seclusion, which made Li Jueqing feel a lot better. But at this time, Leng Shiqi suddenly became the inner supervisor. This made Li Jueqing feel very uncomfortable. At this moment, he was sitting upright, his eyes flashing fiercely. After a long while, he shouted, "Come." Leng Shiqi didn't have the leisure to care about what other people thought because he was quite busy now. He had officially been promoted to the inner supervisor. In addition to the purple cloak, there was also a delicate feathered official hat on his head. This hat was also a good spiritual weapon, which had the miraculous effect of calming the mind. As the inner supervisor, Leng Shiqi could command 5 War Thunder Guards, from the 28 guards to the 32 guards, now under his command. The 28 guards had been reorganized recently, but there were not many people, only 9. One of them was at the early stage of Gang Spirit Realm, and the rest were at the middle and late stage of Spirit Aperture Realm. The number of other guards varied from a dozen. In total, he had 6 Masters of Gang Spirit Realm and nearly 100 War Thunder Guards of Spirit Aperture Realm in his hands. Moreover, these War Thunder Guards were famous for their powerful combat strength. If he was asked to destroy Jihush and Zhuang now, he didn't have to waste his effort to lead the wolf and drive the tiger away. He could crush Jihush and Zhuang with absolute strength. It could be said that the power controlled by Leng Shiqi was already between the second-rate power and the first-class power. Not only that, it should be known that the duty of the Dark Thunder Guards was not only to fight, but to supervise the world. No matter where Leng Shiqi went, his identity as the inner supervisor was enough to be valued by anyone. At this time, Leng Shiqi had moved to his exclusive inner supervisor mansion. He casually named it Xingji Pavilion. In the conference hall of Xingji Pavilion, Leng Shiqi sat in the main seat. There were 2 people standing on his left and right. They were Feng Mo and Huang Lao. There were 5 people below. They were the inner supervisors of the guards. He Fei Chen was also among them. Leng Shiqi did not break his promise. After he was promoted to the position of the inner supervisor, he passed the position of the inner supervisor of the 29 guards to He Fei Chen. According to qualifications and strength, Huang Lao was the most suitable candidate. However, Huang Lao was not interested in power. Instead, he was more willing to follow Leng Shiqi. Therefore, this position was given to He Fei Chen. His cultivation was at the 9th level of Spirit Aperture Realm, which was barely acceptable. Of course, what Leng Shiqi valued more was this person's scheming and ability. Leng Shiqi gathered everyone here to set the rules. Originally, he thought that some of the Spirit Gang Realm inner supervisors would be dissatisfied. However, they all obeyed his orders, which made Leng Shiqi unable to use the means he had prepared. He had infinite potential, outstanding strength, meritorious service, and the support of eunuch Gao. If anyone dared to disobey him, they were not just looking for trouble, but looking for death. In a few days, I have to go out under orders. The time is not certain. During my absence, do what you usually do. Don't make trouble, but don't be afraid of trouble. Leng Shiqi said, Huang Lao, I'll have to trouble you with many chores in Xingji Pavilion. Huang Lao cupped his fists and said, Your Excellency, please rest assured. Leng Shiqi, who was at the Spirit Gang Realm, could condense his voice into a line. He quietly transmitted to Huang Lao and He Fei Chen, If I leave, Feng Mo and his sister will do something. My mission this time is dangerous, so I'll take the 2 of them with me. After that, you have to set up some eavesdropping restrictions in their room. The more secretive, the better. Huang Lao and He Fei Chen both nodded without leaving a trace. Chapter 574. Ningyang County was located in a remote area and was not considered rich. This did not mean that the resources in Ningyang County were not good. On the contrary, it was vast and abundant. The production of all kinds of resources was extremely high, especially the ores and materials used to refine spirit weapons. They took up more than half of the production of the entire Thunderfire dynasty. However, Ningyang County was still not rich. The reason was that there seemed to be some problems with the people here. Most of the people in Ningyang County were conservative, stubborn, and had a trace of arrogance. This was because Ningyang County was one of the origins of the human race. Its long history could be traced back to hundreds of thousands of years ago. This made the people of Ningyang County feel very proud. Today, the forces in Ningyang County were basically divided into two types. One was the normal spirit cultivator sects, and the other was the ancient tribes. The strongest sect in Ningyang County was the Divine Forge Peak. It was one of the top sects in the world along with the Blood Cloak Pavilion. More than half of the refiners in the world came from the Divine Forge Peak. Every year, countless people would go up the mountain to ask the Divine Forge Peak to forge spirit weapons. However, the Divine Forge Peak had its own rules and would not easily forge spirit weapons for them. Other than the Divine Forge Peak, the other spirit cultivator forces were very ordinary. Only a few first-rate forces could be taken out. This could not be blamed. The main reason was that most of the people in Ningyang County were born in tribes. They were basically taught by the elders of the tribes. Unless the tribe's foundation was not enough, they would let their descendants enter a spirit cultivator sect to cultivate. In addition, because Ningyang County produced a large amount of resources, the Thunderfire dynasty had a strong control over this place. There were also some people who chose to join the Thunderfire dynasty. So many resources flowed in and out, but Ningyang County was not very rich. Another important reason was that many of the resources were secretly flowing to one place. That was the Dark Thunder Guards of Ningyang County. In a place with a large amount of precious resources, how could there not be any corruption? As long as someone dared to do it, the Dark Thunder Guards would be able to find out. However, the patrol inspector of Ningyang County's Dark Thunder Guards, Li Zhangtao, would not expose and punish these people. Instead, he would let them do as they pleased and take a cut from them. Li Zhangtao's method was actually similar to the Leng Shiqi's method in the West Desolate Province. This way, a large amount of spirit stones and resources would flow into Li Zhangtao's pocket every once in a while. Of course, it would flow into Li Ju's pocket. It could be said that the position of Ningyang County's inspector was the Li clan's money bag. They would never allow anyone to touch it. Li Jucheng was still thinking about how to deal with eunuch Gao and Leng Shiqi, but at this time, one of his trusted aides suddenly ran in and said, "Sir, I've just received a report that Lu Xingji and his two servants have used the interdomain teleportation formation." "What?" Li Jucheng was slightly surprised. He quickly asked, "Where are they going?" It's Ningyang County." Li Jucheng instantly stood up. His face was extremely gloomy. He said coldly, "It must be that damn eunuch who wants to take back Ningyang County." Wishful thinking. "Quickly go and inform Li Zhangtao, tell him to prepare everything, and don't let Lu Xingji find out anything. We must remind him not to underestimate this Lu Xingji, and to be cautious in all matters. This subordinate will do it right away." On this day, Leng Shiqi, Feng Sha Mo, and Sulwan went through the Dark Thunder Guard's interdomain teleportation formation and arrived at Ningyang County's capital, Ningyang City. As soon as the three of them walked out of the interdomain teleportation formation, they were greeted by several Dark Thunder Guard members. Leng Shiqi secretly sneered. When they used the interdomain teleportation formation from the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters, the news must have reached Li Jucheng's ears. They quickly walked in front of Leng Shiqi and respectfully said, "Greetings, Sir Lu." We are all Dark Thunder envoys of Ningyang County's Dark Thunder Guard. We have specially received Sir Li's order to welcome Sir Lu. Dark Thunder Manor has already prepared a banquet to welcome you, Lord Lu. These people's attitudes were extremely low. Leng Shiqi revealed a faint smile and said, Sir Li is really enthusiastic. However, this envoy is under orders to investigate various matters in Ningyang County. It's not appropriate to be too close to Sir Li, so this envoy can only accept Sir Li's good intentions. This envoy still has to go patrol, so please return. After saying this, Leng Shiqi took a step forward and was already dozens of zhang away. Feng Shamo and Sulwan also followed closely behind him, disappearing without a trace in a few flashes. These people could only helplessly shake their heads as they watched Leng Shiqi leave. There was nothing they could do. After all, the other party was an imperial eunuch and had the authority to investigate. They couldn't just kidnap Leng Shiqi. They could only hurry and report to Li Zhangtao. At this time, in Ningyang City's Dark Thunder Manor, Li Zhangtao was waiting for Leng Shiqi with a group of inspectors and senior inspectors. Previously, these people said that they wanted to hold a banquet for Leng Shiqi, but looking around, there wasn't even a banquet. Instead, they were all sneering. It was clearly a hungmen banquet. Li Zhangtao was over 60 years old. His temples were gray, but he had a unique majestic momentum. He sat on the high seat, playing with an emerald jade rui in his hand. This thing was carved from Fengyuan warm jade, which was specially used to make 6th-level spiritual weapons. This thing was a treasure that would make people jealous outside, but in Li Zhangtao's hand, it was just a toy. After he learned that Eunuch Gao had sent an imperial eunuch who had just entered the gang's spirit realm to Ningyang County, he actually didn't take Leng Shiqi seriously. Li Juecheng and Eunuch Gao had been fighting for so long that he could see at a glance that Leng Shiqi was here to seize power, but he still felt that there was nothing to worry about. This was not because he looked down on Leng Shiqi, but because he was confident in himself. Li Zhangtao had been in charge of Ningyang County for nearly 10 years. In the past 10 years, he had replaced all the Dark Thunder Guards in Ningyang County with his own people. It could be said that he had the final say in the Dark Thunder Guards. In addition, he had already established a good relationship with the major forces and businesses in Ningyang County. They were all related to interests, and they were bound together for good or ill. Therefore, even if he took the initiative to give up power, those people would not be willing to do so. No matter in terms of strength, influence, or background, Ningyang County was not a place where an outsider could interfere. Li Zhangtao had worked hard in Ningyang County for nearly 10 years. If his power was really seized by Leng Shiqi, a junior, he might as well find a piece of tofu and kill himself directly. Therefore, Li Zhangtao didn't care about the arrival of Leng Shiqi, even if Li Juecheng specially reminded him. Today, he had set up a formation to welcome Leng Shiqi because he wanted to show Leng Shiqi who had the final say in Ningyang County. There were a total of 4 supervisors in Ningyang County's Dark Thunder Guards. One of them, Lin Jigue, smiled and said respectfully, "Sir, you don't have to worry. Eunuch Gao is too naive to send a junior to seize power this time. It seems that Eunuch Gao has no subordinates to use. This time, we must make that Lu Xingji lose face. What elite assembly chief? It's just an empty title." Li Zhangtao glanced at him and said, "I don't care if Lu Xingji dares to seize power. He won't succeed anyway, but we can't underestimate him too much. The elite assembly chief is not just a title. At most, we'll make him lose some face and back off. If we go too far, he's already an eunuch at such a young age. Who knows what position he'll climb to in the future? When that time comes, it'll be difficult for him to settle accounts." Lin Jigue was also embarrassed that he had flattered the wrong horse. The others were also secretly laughing. However, at this time, the people who had come to welcome Leng Shiqi returned. Li Zhangtao frowned and said, "You came back on your own. Where is Lu Xingji?" Those people said awkwardly, He left directly." Chapter 575. Hearing this, everyone, including Li Zhangtao, looked at each other. For a moment, they couldn't figure out Lin Shiqi's intention. It was reasonable to say that he was here to seize power, but he didn't even enter the gate of Dark Thunder Hall in Ningyang County. What power did he want to seize? Or was this Lu Xingji afraid and didn't dare to come? But thinking about it, it didn't seem right. He was someone who dared to kill the inspector. How could he not even dare to enter the gate of Dark Thunder Hall in Ningyang County? Li Zhangtao couldn't figure it out. He didn't know where Lin Shiqi had gone. He suddenly felt aggrieved. It was as if he had clenched his fist but ended up punching soft cotton. It was very uncomfortable. He had been an inspector in Ningyang County for 10 years and was used to holding everything in his hands. However, Lin Shiqi didn't play by the rules and escaped his control from the beginning. This made Li Zhangtao's plan fall through, making him feel very depressed. However, he immediately snorted and said, "Let the brothers watch him closely. I want to know his every move and see what he's planning." Anyway, Li Zhangtao was very confident in himself. He believed that in the face of absolute power, no matter what tricks Lin Shiqi played, he couldn't shake him. He just had to deal with all changes by sticking to the status quo. After leaving Ningyang City, Lin Shiqi went deep into the mountains and forests. Using the super detection ability of Byakugan, he easily got rid of the tail behind him. Then, the three of them went to the branch of the blood-clothed pavilion in Ningyang County. The pavilion leader of this branch was called Chan Yi. When the three of them arrived, Chan Yi was shocked. Standing in front of him was the direct disciple of the pavilion leader and 2 disciples of Wu Xiang, one of the 9 Hades blood-clothed assassins. Not to mention anything else, just their identities were not people he could afford to offend. "The 3 of you must have come from afar for something. Please speak," Chan Yi said politely. This time, Lin Shiqi didn't speak. The one who spoke was Feng Shamo. He waved his hand and said, "Bring me all the information on the Dark Thunder Guards in Ningyang County." The reason why Lin Shiqi and the others came here was, of course, to obtain information on Li Zhangtao. In the Thunderfire dynasty, only the blood-clothed pavilion could compare to the Dark Thunder Guards in terms of information. So, he was sure that there would be information on the blood-clothed assassins, especially information that couldn't be revealed. As long as he could get information that was unfavorable to Li Zhangtao, it would be much easier to do things in the future. Although Chan Yi didn't know why Feng Shamo was doing this, he didn't ask and immediately went to instruct his subordinates. Not long after, a few blood-red assassins walked in with a few stacks of information. So much. This was what Lin Shiqi and the other 2 thought at the same time. They didn't hesitate and quickly scanned through the information. They wouldn't know if they didn't read it, but as soon as they read it, they realized that it was all about the Dark Thunder Guard's dark history of corruption. Looking at it carefully, there weren't many in the early years, but there were more in the later years. Especially in the last 2 years, the information was piled up like a mountain. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that it was too much to count. Why does our blood-clothed pavilion have so much information on the Dark Thunder Guards? Lin Shiqi couldn't help but ask. Chan Yi was actually a little surprised because he had never paid attention to it. He couldn't explain, so he could only look at the people who brought the information. One of them said, "Sirs, we didn't collect this information on purpose. It's just that the Dark Thunder Guards have been too brazen in recent years. Many things are even out in the open. This information was only casually collected by our informants. If we dig deeper, there will be more." Hearing this, Lin Shiqi also felt that Li Zhangtao was getting more and more arrogant. As long as he, the Dark Thunder Guards, didn't investigate, who would dare to investigate such dirty things? This was simply embezzlement. However, this was definitely good news for Lin Shiqi. Although the information he had now couldn't be used as direct evidence, it would be enough to threaten Li Zhangtao if he collected a little. Li Zhangtao might not care about the evidence, but Lin Shiqi would at least have a reason to take action. Lin Shiqi took the information and asked, "Is there any more information on the Barren River tribe here?" The Barren River Tribe? I think I have some impression of it. It's a medium-sized tribe, equivalent to a second-rate sect. Chan Yi then added, however, this tribe seems to have produced an incredible genius called Dichuan a few days ago. He later joined the Discipline Commission of the Thunderflame Dynasty. Go and bring me all the information on the Barren River Tribe. Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows under the mask. How could there be such a coincidence in this world? The reason he asked about the Barren River Tribe was because the location of the secret treasure recorded in the jade slip given to him by Zhuge Yun was near the Barren River Tribe. He came to Ningyang County for two purposes. First, of course, was to help Eunuch Gao take back the supervision power of Ningyang County. Second, was to retrieve the secret treasure left behind by the Star Tribe. He knew that Dichuan came from a tribe in Ningyang County, but he never thought that Dichuan was from the Barren River Tribe. He had the Seal of Desolation and the Blood Shadow Sword. If the Barren River Tribe saw them, there would be some trouble. But then again, this might not be a bad opportunity. He had just arrived at Ningyang County. It was impossible for the three of them to overthrow Li Zhangtao, the local tyrant. Originally, he wanted to use some of the blood-clothed assassins. However, it was inevitable that some traces and flaws would be exposed if he did so. The Barren River Tribe was where Dichuan came from. This gave him an idea. The Barren River Tribe was located in the extreme north of Ningyang County, deep in the mountains. It was easy to defend and difficult to attack. The tribe looked a bit like a mountain village. The people inside were very old and simple, wearing clothes made of animal skin. The men were all very strong, and their bodies were more or less engraved with patterns of different colors and shapes. The Barren River Tribe controlled a mineral vein nearby. Although they were not very rich and powerful, they were not weak either. However, the leader of the Barren River Tribe, Hope, was not satisfied with this. All these years, he had been socializing with rogue cultivators and spirit cultivators. He wanted to take over their biggest enemy, the Wasteland Tribe. Originally, the desolate Chuan tribe's power had indeed been slowly growing, but a few of the spirit cultivator sects that had received benefits from him had either perfunctorily done nothing, or had even gone back on their word and joined the Wasteland Tribe. This made him furious. At this moment, Hope was venting his anger in his tent. His body was filled with a tyrannical aura. No one dared to approach him, and no one dared to dissuade him. This was because the Huangchuan tribe had ambushed one of his caravans yesterday and suffered heavy losses. When he finished venting, the tent was already in a mess. He looked at the servants huddled in the four corners and roared impatiently, "Get out!" Those people immediately ran out with their heads covered in dust. Hope picked up a jar of wine and drank it. However, at this moment, a strange figure suddenly appeared. "Why are you so angry, Leader Hope?" "Who is it?" Hopu exclaimed. This was the core of the Barren Chuan tribe, and he himself was at the peak of the gang's spirit realm. Who could come to him without a sound? A figure wearing a black mask came out. "I'm here to help you." Chapter 576. Hope was tall, and his strong muscles were bulging with blue veins. He stared at the mysterious man who suddenly appeared. The spiritual force and chi and blood in his body were ready to burst out at any time. The mysterious man was Leng Shiqi. He said leisurely, "Chief Hope, please calm down. I'm here to make a deal with the Barren Chuan tribe." Hope was still vigilant, but he didn't summon the warriors of the tribe. Since the mysterious man could come to him quietly, his strength alone was enough for him to take him seriously. He said in a low voice, "You're not sincere enough to make a deal with me secretly." Leng Shiqi shook his head and said, "I have no choice. When the time is right, I'll be honest with you. But Chief Hope, you're wrong. I'm here with sincerity. Please look at this." Then he threw out a small sack. Judging from the shape and the blood oozing out of it, Hope knew that it must be a human head. Was this man here to deliver his head? With a light flick of his finger, the linen cloth was torn apart, revealing a bloody head. His expression immediately changed. The leader of the Golden Lion Gang, Yin Shou. The Golden Lion Gang was a third-class sect that he had given a lot of benefits to recently, but eventually turned to the Baron Chuan tribe. Although it was a third-class sect, Yin Shou, the head of the Golden Lion Gang, had broken through to the gang's spirit realm 2 years ago. Now the Golden Lion Gang was thriving and was very close to becoming a second-class sect. But now Yin Shou's head appeared here. And there was no panic on Yin Shou's face, which meant that he was beheaded in an instant. Hope thought that he could do it if he used all his strength, but it could only be done when Yin Shou was alone and unguarded. But how could it be possible? After all, Yin Shou was the head of a gang. How could there be no one around him? The mysterious man in front of him could come here quietly, which meant that his concealment skill was superb. Being able to kill Yin Shou in an instant meant that his strength was outstanding. Such a person was not someone he should take seriously. Moreover, Yin Shou's death had indeed lessened the depression in his heart. He cupped his hands, but his movements seemed a little stiff. It seemed like he didn't do this action often. How should I address you? Hearing this, Leng Shiqi smiled in his heart. Just call me Mr. Lu. Hope frowned slightly. He was not even willing to reveal his name, which made him unhappy. He simply asked, what is the deal that Mr. Lu is talking about? Just say it. I can help you destroy the Wasteland tribe, Leng Shiqi said calmly. However, Hope revealed a mocking smile and said, destroy the Wilderness tribe? Humph, do you think that the Wasteland tribe is as useless as the Golden Lion Gang? The Wilderness tribe had a long history. In its heyday, it was comparable to the current first-class sect. Even if it had declined, it still had 5 masters of Gang Spirit Realm and more than 30 warriors of Spiritual Aperture Realm. How could it be destroyed? All these years, I've been trying to rope in other spirit cultivator forces and tribes. In fact, it's not that I have to destroy the Wasteland tribe, but that I don't want to be destroyed by them. Leng Shiqi turned a deaf ear and continued, I only have one question. Leader Hope, do you want to destroy the Wasteland tribe? Hope immediately paused, his eyes flashing with hatred. Yes, of course I want to. But. No buts. Leng Shiqi directly planned to destroy Hope. As long as Leader Hope listens to my plan, destroying the Wasteland tribe is only a matter of time. Listen to you? Why should I listen to you? What ability do you have to destroy the Wasteland tribe? Besides, why should I believe you? Maybe you were sent by the Wasteland tribe. Hope also sneered. If Leng Shiqi had not given him a certain shock at the beginning, he would have called for people to surround and kill Leng Shiqi. Suddenly, Hope saw a 9-colored light bloom in front of him. He instantly arrived in a 9-colored world. His eyes were blurred, as if he was intoxicated in this wonderful world. At the same time, a voice appeared in his heart. Submit, submit to me. He actually had the urge to kneel down and submit, but his eyes suddenly widened. His whole body lit up with ancient spells, and he broke free from the 9-colored world. But at this time, a dark green sword had already been placed on his neck. Hopu was horrified. Although he had several ways to escape at this moment, if the other party had really attacked just now, he would have been injured at the very least. This mysterious Mr. Lu in front of him was actually so strong. Leng Shiqi withdrew the black jade sword and said, do you know if my ability can enter Leader Hope's eyes? Also, you can completely trust me, because I am a member of the Wasteland tribe. After saying that, he activated the mantra of desolation, and spells appeared on his body, almost the same as Hope's. If Leng Shiqi's strength shocked Hope, then his use of the mantra of desolation made Hope feel incredulous. The mantra of desolation was a high-level secret method of the Wasteland tribe. Only the talented clansmen were qualified to be baptized and cultivate this method. It was impossible for outsiders to successfully cultivate it. In other words, this Mr. Lu was really from the Wasteland tribe. But Hope was puzzled again. He knew all the clansmen who could cultivate the mantra of desolation, but when had there been such an expert? However, there were years of battles between the tribes. Every year, some warriors would die or their lives were unknown. Perhaps this person had once been wandering outside. Ling Shiqi did not explain too much. The more he explained, the more flaws he would reveal. It was best to let Hope's imagination fill in the gaps. He continued, "My identity is a little sensitive now, so it's inconvenient for me to show up. Next, I will help you rope in a few spirit cultivator sects to strengthen your forces. I will also help you secretly assassinate the higher-ups of the Wasteland tribe. In addition, I have a master comparable to the late stage of Gang's spirit realm by my side. Destroying the Wasteland tribe is not an empty promise." Hope thought that if he could really rope in a few spirit cultivator sects, even if they were only third-rate sects, then he would have a great advantage in the number of people in the middle and low end. Judging from the power of Ling Shiqi's attack just now, it was very likely that he would succeed in assassinating the Wasteland tribe. In addition, he had a late-stage Gang spirit realm helper. Under such circumstances, it was really possible to destroy the Wasteland tribe. Although Hope was already very tempted, he did not rush to agree. He still asked, "Since it's a business deal, what does Mr. Lu want from me first?" "After I help you destroy the Wasteland tribe, your forces will also increase greatly. In return, you have to help me kill some people." Ling Shiqi stated his purpose. "Who?" Hope asked solemnly. If it was some difficult master, he would not agree so easily. Ling Shiqi only said 3 words, "Dark Thunder Guards." Chapter 577. Hopu's expression froze. "You want to kill the Dark Thunder Guards?" "That's right," Ling Shiqi replied. He didn't think Hopu would agree so easily. But he didn't expect Hopu to suddenly burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha ha. That's great." Hopu's expression was fierce. "I've long been annoyed by those bastards who only know how to squeeze us dry. I can't wait to swallow those bastards alive." Ling Shiqi's expression was calm, but he was secretly surprised. The Dark Thunder Guards under Li Zhangtao's leadership were hated by the local forces. It was obvious that they were often bullied. However, this was naturally a good thing for Ling Shiqi. He chuckled and said, "Since that's the case, does Chief Hopu agree to this deal?" "As long as you don't break your promise, I will definitely keep my promise." "Okay, it's a deal." Ling Shiqi finally persuaded Hopu. He struck while the iron was hot and said, "There's no time to lose. Let's carry out the first step of the plan and gather a few spirit cultivator sections. Chief Hopu, which forces have received benefits from you before?" In fact, he already knew this from the blood clothing pavilion, but he still asked. At the mention of those sects, Hopu's face suddenly darkened. "There's the Qin family of Blazing Sun City, the Water Cloud sect, and the Fallen Maple Sword sect. Of course, there's also the Golden Lion sect. Among these sects, only the Fallen Maple Sword sect was a second-rate sect. The others were all third-rate sections." Ling Shiqi pondered for a while and said, "Chief Hopu, send a message to the Water Cloud sect. Tell them that you want to deal with the Fallen Maple Sword sect and ask them to help." They definitely won't help. At most, they'll send a few people to deal with it." Hopu seemed to have already seen the outcome. Ling Shiqi said, "That's not the point. If Chief Hopu trusts me, then do it. I don't dare to boast, but I can guarantee that at least 2 forces will submit to the Baron Chuan tribe." "Submit?" Hopu thought he had misheard. It was already good enough that he could win them over. How could they submit? However, since he has chosen to work with Ling Shiqi, I will trust him this time and see what else he can do. At this moment, in the Aqua Cloud sect, they all looked at each other after receiving Hopper's message. They had no idea what Hopper was up to this time. The sword sect of Luofeng was a second-class sect. Its strength was not strong. There were only 2 masters in the Gang spirit realm in the sect, but they were not much weaker than the Huangchuan tribe. Who gave Hopu the confidence to make trouble for the sword sect of Luofeng? The head of the water cloud sect, Shui Yuntian, was a benevolent-looking old man. His every movement gave off a refined feeling. He frowned and said, "What kind of enmity does the fallen maple sword sect have with the barren Chuan tribe? Why is Hopu so anxious? Tell me, what should we do about this?" One of the elders said, "Sect leader, the fallen maple sword sect is not weak. The Huangchuan tribe will not fight to the death with the fallen maple sword sect. Once we make a move, it will be tantamount to offending the sword sect. What should we do if they decide to settle the score later?" "That's not right." A person next to him immediately retorted, "After all, we have taken a lot of benefits from the Huangchuan tribe. As the saying goes, we should not go too far. You are afraid of offending the sword sect of Luofeng, but aren't you afraid of offending the Huangchuan tribe? You know, Hopper is very hot-tempered." Shui Yuntian thought for a moment and said, "Well, let's say that our Aqua Cloud sect has been busy with many things recently and can't spare many people to help the Huangchuan tribe. We can only send 10 disciples in the spiritual pulse realm to him. It's settled. Although we have taken benefits from Hopper, we can't really charge into the enemy's line for him. Let's just deal with it casually." Hearing his words, the others didn't say anything more. Anyway, Shui Yuntian was thinking for the sect. They couldn't get too involved in the conflict between the Huangchuan tribe and the sword sect of Luofeng. It was enough to send a few people to wave flags and shout battle cries. In the Huangchuan tribe, Hopper received the reply from the Aqua Cloud sect. He snorted and said, "Mr. Lu, see? It's just as I expected." Leng Shiqi also sneered, "Chief Hopper, let's go." Where are we going?" Hopper was puzzled. Leng Shiqi's eyes revealed a shocking killing intent, to kill. Hopper seemed to have thought of something. He was shocked, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he immediately went to gather the experts in the tribe. In the Aqua Cloud sect, Shui Yuntian was still drinking tea and playing chess with a few elders. They were chatting about everything under the sun. At this moment, a disciple ran over in a panic. Shui Yuntian and the others were displeased. Shui Yuntian said angrily, "How can you be so flustered? Have you forgotten the rules of the sect?" That disciple hurriedly said, "Sect master, elders, bad news. Hopper has brought a large number of experts from the Huangchuan tribe to attack us." Shui Yuntian's hand trembled, and the teacup fell to the ground and shattered. Didn't the Huangchuan tribe go looking for trouble with the sword sect of Luofeng? Why were they attacking the Aqua Cloud sect? However, since they were already here, Shui Yuntian didn't have time to think about it. He hurriedly led everyone to the mountain gate. At this time, many disciples of the Aqua Cloud sect gathered together with pale faces because the Huangchuan tribe had more than twice as many people as them. Moreover, the number of experts in the celestial realm far exceeded that of the Aqua Cloud sect. Even Hopper, the chief, and the second chief, who was in the late stage of Gang spirit realm, were here. With such strength, it would be a piece of cake for them to destroy the Aqua Cloud sect. Those disciples of the Aqua Cloud sect didn't even have the intention to resist. They were only thinking about how to escape. Shui Yuntian came over and was startled by the scene. His heart suddenly skipped a beat, and he secretly thought that Hopper didn't come with good intentions today. He cupped his fists and said, "What can I do for you, Chief Hopper?" However, it wasn't Hopper who answered him, but the mysterious masked man next to him. He said coldly, "Today, we're here to ask for an explanation from the Aqua Cloud sect." Shui Yuntian didn't recognize Leng Shiqi, and he was also very confused. Who was this man? Why did Hopper, who was always hot-tempered, regard him as his leader? However, he couldn't care less. He asked back, "What are you talking about? Our Aqua Cloud sect has never done anything wrong to the Huangchuan tribe. Let me ask you, have you already surrendered to the Huangchuan tribe?" Leng Shiqi asked harshly. Shui Yuntian opened his mouth and didn't know how to answer for a moment. It was true that he had received benefits from the Huangchuan tribe, but he hadn't surrendered to them yet. However, in front of these aggressive people, he didn't dare to say no. He was thoughtful and said carefully, "The Aqua Cloud sect won't surrender to anyone. We're just cooperating with the Huangchuan tribe." Leng Shiqi said coldly, "Good cooperation. Then why are you only willing to send 10 disciples in the spiritual pulse realm when Chief Hopper asked you to send people to deal with the fallen maple sect? Is this your sincerity?" Shui Yuntian said perfunctorily, "That's because our disciples do have some trivial matters to attend to. We really don't have extra people." "Is that so?" Leng Shiqi glanced at the disciples of the Aqua Cloud cult standing behind the mountain gate. There were about 100 or 200 of them. "Then send everyone standing here over. If you don't want to, you can come over in person." Shui Yuntian's expression immediately darkened. "Are you trying to force us to do something we don't want to? Don't tell me you don't care about the rules between spirit cultivator sects." Leng Shiqi's eyes were full of malice. "Rules. Rules are rules. If you take someone's money, you have to help them. You've received benefits, but you don't want to do anything. How can there be such a good thing in the world? Today, I'll teach you another rule, and that's the law of the jungle." Hopper understood and stepped forward. He waved his hand and shouted, "Don't leave a single one alive." The Huangchuan tribe's warriors all shouted, and patterns of different colors lit up on their bodies. For a moment, the sound of battle shook the heavens. These warriors had grown up in battle. Whether it was their fighting strength or their aura, they were incomparable to the Aqua Cloud sect's disciples. As soon as he said this, the people below all laughed dryly. How could Li Zhangtao not know their morals? He frowned and asked, "What happened?" "Sir, that Lu Xingji has gone missing." One of them mustered up his courage and said. "Pa!" Li Zhangtao suddenly slammed the table and said angrily, "What? Missing? How can you lose track of such a big person?" "Well, I have my own difficulties. Lu Xingji and the other two are in the gang spirit realm, and the other is in the late stage of the spiritual aperture realm. They are so fast. How can my men keep up with them?" "Then why didn't you tell me earlier?" Li Zhangtao was also angry. These men might have been idle for too long. It was time to teach them a lesson. "Go, mobilize all the men of the Dark Thunder Mansion in Ningyang County. Spread the net and find Lu Xingji for me. If I still don't know where he is in 2 days, humph." At the end of his words, there was a fierce look in his eyes, which made those men tremble in their hearts. This time, Li Zhangtao was really angry. They immediately took the order and went to do it. Li Zhangtao suddenly let out a deep sigh. Right now, even he felt that the Ansha Dark Lightning Guards under his command were rotten to the point of rotting. Leng Shiqi's sudden appearance and disappearance were completely out of his control, which made him feel uneasy deep in his heart. Now, Leng Shiqi and Hopu had returned to the Barren River tribe. They brought back a lot of resources, which made the disciples of the tribe very happy. Leng Shiqi, the mysterious man, also won some trust and status. At this moment, Hopu and the other 3 leaders were discussing with Leng Shiqi in the tent. "Mr. Lu, what should we do next?" Leng Shiqi shook his head secretly. No wonder Hopu had worked so hard for so long without any substantial results. It turned out that there was no one in the Barren River tribe who could come up with a plan, including Hopu. Perhaps this was the price of the super fighting strength of these tribes. He said, "The next step is very simple. We just need to repeat the method to deal with the Water Cloud sect. Send someone to inform the Chen family in Scorching Sun City and ask them to send people to deal with the sword sect of the Fallen Maple." Hopu finally understood. This was really a vicious plot. If the Chen family helped, they would offend the Fallen Maple sword sect. If they didn't, then the Chen family would suffer the same fate as the Water Cloud sect today. "Okay, I'll send someone to Blazing Sun City right away. Hopu immediately went to make the arrangements, but Leng Shiqi stopped him again. Leng Shiqi said, "This time, we'll catch the Qin family off guard." When the news of the Barren River tribe reached the Qin family of Blazing Sun City, the higher-ups of the Qin family were all worried. They knew very well how the Water Cloud sect was destroyed. Now, the Huangchuan tribe was using the same excuse to blame the Qin family. The key was how should they reply to Hopu now? If they really helped the Barren River tribe, then they would become enemies with the fallen Maple Sword sect. However, if they didn't agree, the blood of the Water Cloud sect was still flowing. They didn't want to become the second Water Cloud sect. The patriarch of the Qin family, Qin Chuling, sighed and said, "Everyone, let's think of something." The elders immediately began to speak one after another. "I think it's better to give in. Even if we completely offend the fallen Maple Sword sect, it's still better than being wiped out. If we give in this time, it'll be equivalent to surrendering to the Barren River tribe. How can the Qin family raise our heads in front of others in the future?" "That's right, Patriarch. I'm not willing to surrender to those barbarians either. Why don't we send a few people to deal with them?" "You're too naive." The Water Cloud sect had the same plan back then. In the end, the Water Cloud sect no longer exists in this world. If there's no other way, we'll surrender to other forces and ask for protection. Or we can ask the Discipline Commission to mediate. However, just as they were arguing endlessly and hadn't come up with a solution, a loud noise came from outside the Qin family. A rough voice resounded through the sky. "Qin Chuling, come out and accept your death." The expressions of the Qin family members changed drastically. They had just received the message. Why was Hopu here already? However, when they arrived at the gate of the Qin family, they were all stunned. Hopu wasn't the only one who came. There were also thousands of elite warriors of the Barren River tribe. Chapter 579. Seeing this, Qin Chuling had a bad feeling. But Hapa had sent someone to deliver the message, and now he was here. He didn't even have a chance to catch his breath. Until now, he still didn't know what to do. His heart was as anxious as ants on a hot pan, but he was still the head of the family. He forced himself to look calm and said, "Chief Hopper, we were just discussing how to help you attack the fallen Maple Sword sect. I didn't expect Chief Hopper to come so quickly." This time, it was Hopu who spoke, and Leng Shiqi stood behind him. It was not that he didn't want to show off, but the Chens were built near Scorching Sun City, and there were some people around. At this time, many people had gathered, so it was inconvenient for him to show up. Fortunately, he had told Hopu what to do before he came. At this time, Hopu shouted at the top of his voice, "There's no need to discuss. In order to save time, you can gather all your men. We'll set off for the fallen Maple Sword sect together. I'll only give you an hour." Hearing this, Qin Chuling panicked. Not only him, but all the members of the Chens who heard this were panicking. He hurriedly said, "Chief Hopu, don't worry, enough." Hopu interrupted Qin Chuling, "I'm not here to listen to your nonsense. You've received so many benefits from me, so you should do your best for me. This time, the fallen Maple Sword sect will be led by your Chens." "Impossible." Qin Chuling shouted subconsciously, but he immediately realized that he had misspoken. As expected, Hopu sneered, "Since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then pay with your life. Kill." With the word "kill," thousands of soldiers roared and rushed out crazily. Leng Shiqi also fixed his eyes on Qin Chuling. He wanted to test out his current strength, but last time at the Water Cloud sect, that Shui Yuntian was too weak, and he killed him in 2 moves. Now, Qin Chuling was at the early stage of Gang's spirit realm, just like him, so he could use him as a test stone. Leng Shiqi waved his arms, and hundreds of shining starlight and red and blue sword chi appeared in the air in an instant. The Heavenly Cycle Star God technique, that he cultivated had an accompanying spiritual skill called Starlight Sword Aura. This spiritual skill was only a level 4 spiritual skill and was not considered very powerful. However, the Starlight Sword Chi had a very good characteristic, and that was its extreme speed. Ling Shiqi's Sanju Sword Chi was integrated a long time ago. Even for him who was in Gang's spirit realm, he could not keep up with it. Therefore, he integrated the Starlight Sword Chi into the Sanju Sword Chi during his closed-door training for 2 months. It was the Star Extinction Sword Chi. The current Star Extinction Sword Chi might not be too powerful, but it had the advantage of quantity and speed. Hundreds of sword chis of Star Extinction shot out like a meteor shower, instantly enveloping Chen Chuling. Moreover, he opened up all the spiritual meridians and spiritual cavities in his body, and even he did not know how strong the power was. On top of that, his physical strength and mental strength were extremely strong, which complemented his spiritual power. In this way, the early stage of Gang's spirit realm was nothing in front of him. Ling Shiqi did not move, but killed Chen Chuling, who was at the early stage of Gang's spirit realm, in 3 moves, which shocked Hopu. If he were to personally go up and use all of his strength to kill Chen Chuling, perhaps it would only take him a few moves. But Ling Shiqi had done it so easily, with just a wave of his hand. Hope admitted that he couldn't do it. After Chen Chuling died, the Chens had no chance to resist, and could only be slaughtered by the warriors of the Huangchuan tribe. There were quite a few people gathered near the Chen family. When they saw this bloody scene, they were all terrified. Some of the more timid ones began to tremble, while others turned around and ran away. Therefore, the news of the Huangchuan tribe exterminating the Chen family spread like wildfire. Everyone who heard the news thought that Hopu had lost his mind. However, many people were afraid of the Huangchuan tribe. They were not afraid of how strong other forces were, but they were afraid of the Huangchuan tribe, which was a mad dog that would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Hopu walked on the ground covered with corpses, and he began to enjoy this feeling. All his recent suffocation could be said to have been vented. How delightful! He said to Ling Shiqi, "Mr. Liu, tell me what to do next, and I'll do it." Ling Shiqi chuckled and said, "The next step is simple. We destroyed 2 third-rate sects in a row, and others have seen the determination and ruthlessness of the Huangchuan tribe. Leader Hopu, as long as you go to those sects who have received benefits from you or want to join forces with the Huangchuan tribe, they will most likely choose to join forces with you." In fact, it was true. Not to mention the entire Ningyan County, even the sects around the Huangchuan tribe were scared by Hopu. As long as he went there, those sects would immediately agree to cooperate with him and send him a large number of masters on the spot. In a few days, the Huangchuan tribe had gathered 4 third-rate sects, and there were more than 10 people in the Spirit Aperture realm who could help. Although the Fallen Maple Sword sect would not join them, they agreed to lend Hopu 2 masters in the Spirit Aperture realm. This kind of combat power had completely surpassed Hopu's old rival, the Huangchuan tribe. On this day, Hopu returned to the tribe happily. Ling Shiqi said, "It's time to start the second step of the plan." The gem on his forehead suddenly burst, and rich green light poured into his body, forming mysterious green patterns on the surface of his body. Feng Sharmo moved even faster. He raised his saber and slashed down. In an instant, an illusory wind saber more than 100 meters long chopped down, which was about to cut off the heaven and earth. In the face of this destructive saber, Cook roared, and the shadow of a giant beast from ancient times seemed to appear behind him. Unfortunately, just as he was about to break out and risk his life, Ling Shiqi made a gesture with one hand, and his whole body suddenly bloomed with endless 9-colored light, as if weaving a wonderful dreamland. The 6th level illusion, flowing light illusion skill. Cook's eyes were absent-minded. In his eyes, there was only a dreamlike 9-colored world, which intoxicated him. The giant beast shadow behind him also dissipated. At the same time, Feng Sharmo's saber had already chopped down. Strangely, although Cook was absent-minded for a moment, when the saber approached him, the green patterns on his body automatically flew out and entangled the illusory wind saber. Those green rays of light looked very weak, but they were extremely tough. They actually blocked the saber. Feng Sharmo snorted coldly. With one side of his saber, the shocking saber intent caused the wind to surge and the heaven and earth to shake. The illusory wind saber suddenly exploded, and countless sharp saber auras wreaked havoc, directly cutting Cook into pieces. This was Feng Sharmo's true strength. Perhaps it was because he had disguised himself as a Dark Thunder guard for a long time and had held back for a long time, but Feng Sharmo fought to his heart's content, and Leng Shiqi became his assistant. However, Leng Shiqi did not care. As long as he could destroy this caravan, it was fine. He then kept the huge amount of precious ores in his pocket. If he sold all of these things, he would be able to get more than 700,000 to 800,000 spirit stones. Other than that, there were also many mustard seed bags and bracelets from spirit cultivators. Added together, it was a huge fortune. Feng Sharmo did not care about these resources. He walked over and said, "The next step should be to attack the Wasteland tribe. From now on, you can be considered to have Ho Pu's Wasteland tribe as your foundation. You will have the confidence to deal with Li Zhangtao. It is indeed a good plan." Leng Shiqi also nodded. It was rare to be praised by Feng Sharmo. However, Leng Shiqi had other plans. Just as he was about to talk about the follow-up plan, a notification suddenly appeared in front of his eyes. "Congratulations, host, the system has been successfully upgraded. Please take a look." After that, there were still about 50 to 60 subsidiary systems. He could only click on them one by one to take a closer look. The challenge system was an activity similar to climbing a tower. Every time one succeeded, there would be a certain reward. The earlier stages were relatively simple, and one could accumulate some resources. However, it would only get more and more difficult towards the end, to the point where it would be difficult to even take a single step. Apart from harvesting some low-grade and mid-grade resources, it would not be of much use, so it was eliminated. Team system: you can form a team with up to 4 people. You can sense each other and communicate with each other from a distance. He could only say that it was indeed very convenient. However, the only people he could trust in this world were the Delta Origi. He couldn't even gather 5 people, so he eliminated them. After rounds of selection, Leng Shiqi was only left with 4 subsidiary systems. They were the instance system, the profession system, the territory system, and the talent system. The instance system, as the name implied, allowed you to enter a dungeon. Back on Blood Mist Island, he had entered a mystical ruins instance. The battle had been fierce, but the rewards had been good. The instance system actually had 2 ways to unlock a dungeon. One was the instance card he had used before. After activating the instance system, you could obtain an instance card every day. As for the quality of the card and the type of dungeon, it was completely random. The other was to connect to a virtual world and set it as a large instance dungeon. It was then divided into smaller instance dungeons of varying difficulty. Once you cleared all the instance dungeons in this instance dungeon, you could continue to unlock the next instance dungeon. To put it bluntly, the instance system allowed you to enter one instance dungeon after another. You could either kill monsters or complete special quests, and finally receive the corresponding rewards. The profession system gave you a random profession, such as a craftsman, an alchemist, an array master, and so on. Leng Shiqi would be very happy if he could get these professions randomly. However, there were also some strange professions. Like a demon hunter, a scavenger, a coffin keeper, no matter how you looked at it, they didn't seem like proper professions. Ling Shiqi was hesitant. The territory system. After activating this system, you had to randomly select a territory. This territory could be a mansion, an underground city, a secret realm, or even a futuristic sci-fi base. Once you had a territory, you would be the overlord of it. You would then have all sorts of ways to expand your territory. However, you only had one chance to select a territory. You could not change what territory you selected. It was a bit like an infinite lottery where the upper and lower limits were high.